Hey, what's
Oh,
up, everyone? Welcome to the Timeless Gamer Show, where our games and our bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain timeless. And this show is now streaming live in Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And for all of our archive videos of previous episodes, you can still check them out by going to the YouTube channel of Timeless Gamer Show. And you can also check out our website. That's timelessgamers.com under maintenance, sure, but hey, there are still some good stuff in there if you happen to check that out. And you can still listen to us in all major streaming platforms by searching in Timeless Gamers Show. So, previously on this Timeless Gamers Show, we did like a good discussion regarding the Silent Hill movie. Oh, specifically the Silent Hill 1 movie back in 2006, and that movie was suggested by Sir Viraj, actually. And I think we were able to destroy that movie based on what we saw. But anyway, if
You
you're
like the
curious
film?
about what we said about that movie, it's trash. Okay,
Okay, that's your
just
opinion, all
just
right?
check the episode out. I think Sir Viraj is the only one who likes it.
I like it. I like it. I have to say.
All right.
All right.
So, oh my God. Oh, so for today's episode, may the fourth be with you guys,
Mm.
and I can sense a big disturbance in the force right now. Hey. So today is May 4th, ladies and gentlemen, and of course
What the
it's the
hell?
International Star Wars Day. So in celebration of Star Wars Day, we decided to play a few Star Wars games and talk it out amongst ourselves.
Why are you
Um,
putting this? What is this?
what is this?
Joe hadn't had his cinnamon buns for the morning yet, so that's
This?
why he's.
Take a picture,
Mom,
go
what the
live
hell?
on there.
Mom, what the hell?
At least go for the slave girl one. Or why are you going like this? Like the young layer, from the first.
No. I told you. I cannot really pull that off.
Oh,
You got the glands. You got the mammary glands.
I got the boobs, yes, but I don't get the waist. I look like
I'm just,
I look like
gonna
Princess
say-
Leia here, but I look like Jabba the Hutt here.
I'm just gonna say, you guys in the audio part of the podcast, you guys are missing out. You guys really should be
Yeah.
watching the video portion of the podcast, but you can catch it in replay.
Merry Christmas, everybody! All right.
Well, props to
Uh,
you. Props to you for doing it.
Too bad Sir Dan ain't here. Yeah. Sir Dan ain't here. He's one of the advocates of the Star Wars episode that we wanted to do today. I think he's off masturbating somewhere. With all of this goodness right here.
God no.
So yeah. So this episode has been a long time coming. When we thought about the episode, okay, sure. On May 4th. We said, May 4th is a Saturday. What a coincidence! Let's just do Star Wars on May 4th, and we gave each other some time just to prepare for this special episode. And yeah, it's going to be a Star Wars special. We'll be able to hopefully incorporate some of the movies. Well, at least some of the tidbits,
Relevant movies, yeah.
some of the things that we know about the movies, incorporating them with the games. And just introducing the panel right now, we got Qui-Gon Joel right there from Jersey. Say hello.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. This is Joel Baklit of the Banyagang Native page, flashing my lightsaber because, it is May 4. Oh, Miss, there you go. And of course, it's the kind that has, those neat sound effects, and it changes color as well. So I'll just let you guys know that I got this not just for today, but I've always been an original trilogy Star Wars fan, and I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. Back to you, John.
All right. Thank you for that, Sir Joel.
Could be green.
Qui-Gon Joel, right? How about C3 Viraj?
C3 Mirage. Nah, I could never do C3PO. He's just
I mean, you've got the accent.
I could do the posh English accent.
Yeah, he does sound like a British accent, right?
Yes. Oh, how rude! You know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
there you go.
Something like that. I can't do C3PO. I'm glad to be part of this. I feel grateful that you guys have me on here to talk about the Star Wars game. We'll have a lot of fun today. The fact of the matter is there are just so many Star Wars games that have come out. Since the first movie, since the prequel trilogy, since the sequel trilogy, and everything else in between. So, it'll be a lot of fun going through this with the panel and myself. And by all means, comment in the comment section. Tell us your favorite games and your thoughts on the games we're talking about. It'd be good to interact with you guys. Right, back to you.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Viraj. And how about Obi-Wan Kenobi, who oddly dresses up like Kylo Ren?
Kylo Ren, man.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Good evening and good day, everyone. And happy May the 4th to everyone. And Mom, what the heck?
Mom's been
And-
putting on a lot of weight.
Yes, and can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you fine.
Okay, yeah. I
Are you
think I
supposed to
can.
be breathe-
I can.
Are you supposed to be like an asthmatic, like? Oh no!
Sadly, I don't have that technology yet to modify my voice, and I'm trying to modulate my voice, but I
Right,
can't do.
modulate my voice, whatever.
Oh,
I hope you have.
it doesn't matter where we are.
Yeah.
What matters is our plan. Or that's Bane.
All right, so welcome to the show, and hope you enjoy this episode about Star Wars. And it's already getting harder to breathe here, so I just adjust the mask. Oh,
There you
right
go.
here,
Yeah,
so.
it always made me wonder about the actors behind the helmets and the masks. I mean, I'm imagining that they had a hard time breathing in those costumes. Anyway,
I
yeah,
think it's better if they have the helmet because it has the cushions
yeah, that's true.
to make it more breathable than this one. This is just a mask.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So it's hugging my face. This is like a face hugger.
Okay, we're crossing into a different sci-fi territory. Aliens. Okay.
Oh, but
Alright, so back to the
maybe in the future we could do an alien show, but
For that,
Right.
Sir
Right.
JDM, broadcasting live from the Death Star,
Yeah.
yes.
and one of our and another member of the Sith, the Sith Lords here. We got Emperor, we got Emperor Palpa Enslin.
Hi everyone, happy May the 4th with the 4th PVD.
Yes. There you go.
Apologies for my low cost cosplay.
Yeah, you know, cosplay. That guy is awesome.
Oh, cosplay indeed.
at least you got
All right.
those. All right.
And thank you for that, Miss Anson. And me, of course, I'll be your Princess Lazy Balls.
This is
Okay, Mom.
All right.
Whatever you say.
So
Okay, Mom,
So
whatever
there's
you
a lot. So there are a lot of Star Wars games, ladies and gentlemen. So and we just chose just cherry picking some of the retro stuff. Okay. None of those PS3, PS4, PS5. All of those shit. We're keeping things retro for a while. Retro for this evening. So I'll just give it to the guy. So who wants to go first?
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go first because I have some of the oldest games in the entire show. Let me start off by saying Star Wars was formative to my childhood. I was not very aware of Star Wars when A New Hope came out, but Empire Strikes Back during the 80s was huge. It just blew up in the Philippines, and everybody went Star Wars bonkers. But when it came to video games, the very first, well, it wasn't really the first Star Wars game that I ever played, but the Star Wars game that came out for the Atari 2600, The Empire Strikes Back, was the very first licensed Star Wars game, licensed game ever. The Empire Strikes Back for Atari 2600. If you guys have a look at it in YouTube or here that with the video that we're showing right now, the graphics are extremely rudimentary, as in how Atari 2600 graphics are. You have your ice speeder, if I remember correctly, that's what it's called. And your basic goal is to kind of stop the AT-AT and AT-ATs, those giant four-legged walkers that are trying to
Not to
get
be confused with AT&T.
AT&T now, not to be confused with AT&T. That's another evil empire. But yeah, so the idea is that you're running your ice speeder and you're trying to destroy those giant walkers that are coming relentlessly towards your base in Hoth, and you're doing your it's a little different because the mechanics on the Atari 2600 were not as complicated as later games. So you don't have your cable that you can shoot towards the legs of your enemies, but you are shooting at them, and the more that you shoot at them, the more damage you cause. They change colors from dark colors to light, and the lighter they get, the bigger damage that they take, and eventually you can destroy them. But there comes a small flashing part in the giant walkers. It shows up randomly in their napes, on their chest, on the back, on their asses. If you chance upon hitting that properly, you instantly destroy the giant walker. But of course, the giant walker is not defenseless. It is shooting back at you, and the more you get shot, the more damage you take as well. Your ice speeder flyer changes colors as well. The darker, from dark to light, the lighter you get, the more damage you take. You can land on the ground to repair damage, but eventually you will get destroyed. There is one of two. There is no totally winning condition. It's a high score game. So you either get as high as you can and ultimately you get destroyed, or the walkers get to your base and it destroys Hoth base. It's a very, very simple game. A lot of people liked it when it first came out. It made a lot of money. If I remember correctly, it sold 3 million cartridges back then. And it was very, very seat of your pants action. It's single player. You don't have any multiplayer for the Atari 2600 unless you count basketball or couch co-op. But yes, as the very first licensed video game of all time, The Empire Strikes Back for the Atari 2600 was a lot of fun, and it was not as tactical as I wish it would have been, with no grappling hook that snagging the legs of the giant walkers. But it was very presentable, and it was very respectable for what it was. A simple, straightforward translation of The Empire Strikes Back, the most exciting part of it in terms of vehicle combat. And I would say it's worth a quick playthrough. If you're any kind of Star Wars fan, you want to try out The Empire Strikes Back for the Atari 2600. Very simple graphics, very simple gameplay, but very fun nonetheless. So that is my first game of choice. Let's see. I would say my second game of choice is a game that is more familiar to a lot of Filipino Star Wars video game players, because we're talking about Star Wars for the Famicom, not Star Wars for the NES, but Star Wars for the Famicom, where it deviates significantly from the plot line of Star Wars: A New Hope, because of the fact that we are talking about Darth Vader turning into a scorpion the first time that you hit him with your lightsaber. So this game, Star Wars for the Famicom, is graphically impressive because it does capture the feel of Star Wars: A New Hope. Right from the beginning, you see that giant Imperial destroyer going after the Corellian battleship. The intro really captures the feel of A New Hope. If you were any kind of Star Wars fanatic during that time, you knew this was Star Wars. When you get into it, it becomes a side-scrolling game. right off the bat, you have your lightsaber, not like the US version where you start off with a paltry blaster. You get your lightsaber right off the bat. But of course, deviations abound. So you start hitting little Jawa creatures in the desert or the sand people, they suddenly produce force crystals. And you, as a Star Wars fanatic, you'd say, I don't remember there being force crystals in New Hope, but screw it. It's a game. You give it a shot anyway. Creatures from the desert attack you. You run and jump. I would say the one thing, there you go. Reikyu says Star Wars the Namco version. Yes, Reikyu put it perfectly. We Filipinos got this instead of the American Star Wars for NES back then. And we enjoyed the heck out of this, despite the fact that it's not perfect. It's not perfect. The game itself has very floaty controls. It's extremely frustrating to move Luke around. He doesn't stop on a dime. When you move him, he kind of jitters a little bit before he stops, and that caused so many deaths. And the bad thing about this is you only get 3 lives, unless you earn them throughout the game. You get killed, if I remember correctly. You can only start in where you died three times, and then you have to start the entire game all over again. This is the part where all Filipinos, and I'm imagining everybody who played this in the start went, "What the hell is happening?" I hit Darth Vader. Wait, no. First things first. Why is Darth Vader in the sandcrawler, the Jawa sandcrawler? Screw it. I'm gonna hit him. So you hit him. He turns into a scorpion. And he goes, "What?" But then again, screw it. You still fight the giant scorpion, and it's deviations abound. It's like one of those things. Oh, and of course, the moment that you ride that land speeder, Luke's land speeder, was joyous. It doesn't stick really well to the Star Wars lore. It doesn't stick 1-to-1, but the deviations it takes is a lot of fun nevertheless. It has portions where you ride the Millennium Falcon, first-person shooter mode, and of course, the most exhilarating part of it is the Death Star trench run at the very end. It's not the perfect Star Wars game, but it's the perfect Star Wars game to start off with if you're at all inclined towards action games and Star Wars games. We Filipinos enjoyed the heck out of it, despite the fact that when it first came out, it was purely in Japanese. English patches came out later on, but we couldn't understand the lick of Japanese. We enjoyed it anyway because we were huge Star Wars nerds. Original trilogy forever. And that is my choice of 2 Star Wars games to present to you guys in the earliest eras of Star Wars video games. I'm not even touching on DOS games. We can talk about that as we go. But yes, my first 2 choices of games are the Atari 2600, Empire Strikes Back. A lot of fun, very simple, rudimentary game, but give it a try and nevertheless. And Star Wars Namco version for the Japanese Famicom. Play it, enjoy it. You won't understand a lick of Japanese. Get the English patch. Wield the lightsaber right off the bat, and just ignore the scorpion. All right. Those are my 2 games to start off with. I think we can have everybody's opinions on what you guys think about my choices. I'd like to hear Miss Eileen, because I'm pretty sure she's never tried either of them. What do you think of how they look, Miss Eileen? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, she's gonna unmute herself.
Sorry. Like you said, Sir Joel, the first game was quite rudimentary. And I think even though I played old games, I haven't touched some games in that style, I would say. That's really quite simple, and maybe I could give it a try. But I think I would be more inclined to try this one.
The
I like
Namco.
the art. Yes, the Namco version. And as usual, the art is appealing to me, and it's quite colorful. And it reminds me of the NES games I have played with the art there.
All right, very cool.
And the
Anybody else want to pitch in? See what your initial impressions are. I know my choices are a little esoteric. I'm an old guy. I'm inclined to just say, well, whatever, you guys. I'm just enjoying this, however it is. But any impressions?
I think the Atari game which you presented is obviously primitive. I mean, what year was it made? 82, 80?
Absolutely, yeah.
It was literally after Empire Strikes Back came out, and obviously we're looking at primitive 8-bit technology. However, for an Atari 2600 game, that's actually good.
It is.
even though I don't like. I mean, the Atari 2600 I have, but I don't. It's not a console I go back to because I just see it as a score master and something to just kill some time. It's not like a serious console, but I think for what that was, is pretty good. So for a bit of a quick mess around to see what they were doing back in the 80s, early 80s, that's fine. Now, as for the Famicom edition, which was actually the first Star Wars game for the 8-bit Nintendo platform, and when I say Famicom, I mean the Japanese, Nintendo 8-bit. That came out in '87. This thing, I looked it up, and that's not bad for a 1987 game, because the obviously the ones that followed afterwards on the NES, which is the Western Nintendo that we got in America and the European areas, those versions came out in '91 and 1992 respectively, and they were the Star Wars and Star Wars Empire Strikes Back games. And what I find really interesting is how this one, in terms of its presentation, in how the sprite looks, how the colors are used, for something in 1987 look better than something that the official, shall we say, the official Western releases. They look a lot better and play a lot better than the Western versions of Star Wars on pretty much the same platform. So this is the one to play, in my opinion, for the 8-bit machines, because the other two, not to say that they're bad, it's just they're just not aesthetically pleasing on the eye, shall we say. People might
Of course, yeah. I mean, I imagine kids nowadays would probably look at this and say, "Yeah, you're right, Raj. It is way too primitive for a lot of kids." But yeah, you took what you could back then, and you enjoyed what you enjoyed, however it came to you. Of course, I forgot to mention, the 8-bit Namco version had force powers as well. The Atari 2600 had the force, but only for 20 seconds. You became invulnerable to the walkers once you gathered a certain number of hits, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it happened. The force was there, but not as strong in the early games. Okay.
Another thing I want to quickly add is the creative license they used when making this game, because there's an English translation patch that I put on my ROM, which is up here, and the little at the start you see a little animated, well, not animated, it's like a little image of Leia talking through R2-D2 saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I need my help. I need your help." That's basically it. But when you see the translate, it's like, "Help me, Luke, I need your help." So it's like they've made up their own story of what Star Wars is. It's like,
yeah.
And then you talk about like Luke does not have a lightsaber in the first movie. He doesn't touch face Vader in the first movie. It's Obi-Wan who faces him. He made the sacrifice. So a lot of creative license is used in this game. But is it a fun game? Yes, it is. If you're a stickler for it to be canonical to the films, you might want to stay away from this if it will bother you, because it might hurt your head. But if we're looking at it as a game, it's actually a decent game for what it is. So.
There you go. All right. How about you, Joe? What's your opinion on it?
Question. Do I look pretty?
Come on.
Okay.
Come on.
All right. So I'm looking at the gameplay of the Namco Star Wars games.
Yeah.
And typical Namco design aesthetic. It kind of looks like you're playing Mega Man, kinda. Although the Capcom game, based on the stage design and gameplay aspects of it. We just saw Darth Vader turning to a pterodactyl this time on the second stage. When Luke's in Hoth, I'm guessing.
Yes,
it's all white. So I'm guessing it's the ice planet of Hoth. I'm guessing because it's all white, and I'm not sure why they went with this one. They went with that one. Like, is it every planet that you're on, you're fighting a pseudo Darth Vader?
Yeah,
and I'm like.
Like,
I think they're trying to gun for when Luke was in Dagobah, he went to the cave and then he saw Darth Vader, and then it turns out it's just a test. So I think they're kind of gunning for that kind of narrative here. Like, okay, you're not really facing Darth Vader, like just a like a somewhat Darth Vader, and then if you damage him well enough, and then it will be revealed it's a different creature.
Yes.
So who knows? Um, Darth Vader's apparently Darth Vader's in another castle, or in this case, Darth Vader's in another space station, right? So right now, I don't remember Luke. I don't know.
Underwater? No, he was never underwater.
Swimming, like, was there an underwater episode? Underwater scene in Star Wars. I mean, this is the swamp. I'm guessing from Dagobah.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
you know
know.
how NES games are always have this water level.
Yeah.
There should always
Might
be a
as well
water
just
level,
place
Give it
this water level in this game.
right? It kind of gives me that teenage ninja turtles kind of
Yes,
vibe
exactly.
It
from
reminds me of Alex the Kid
this
in
water
Miracle
level.
World. So
Right.
That bit where he's punching the blocks underwater, and Alex the Kid in Miracle World. So it reminds me
Oh,
of
yeah.
that. Distance. So you have
In
that
general, yeah, I would say games in in that era didn't really strive for absolute accuracy because of the fact that it wasn't really technically possible. You just had the technology just couldn't keep up with whatever was being shown on the screen. So you had to make things up as you went. And some of these
I
enemies
mean,
were
see,
bastards.
so you're
There you go.
here again
Another Darth
underwater,
Vader.
Oh, right. I love what
Right.
Ray said. There's a shark Vader too, and
Shark
Harry
this
is
time. Right? Crazy.
That's a prehistoric shark.
Yeah.
What year was this?
1987.
87. Right. So 87. So that's like what? Empire Strikes Back? No.
No,
No. I think we already got Return of the
Return of the
Jedi by
Jedi.
that
Return of the
time.
Jedi was already there. Yeah. Mhm.
So
Right.
let's do this chronology. 1977 Star Wars, yes?
Yes.
The first one.
1980 Empire Strikes Back, 1983 Return of the Jedi.
Mm.
Right.
So all the films were out when this game was made. Yeah?
No, because I'm guessing I mean, it's pretty ambitious of them trying to cram all of those all three movie storylines
Mhm.
in a NES cartridge or a Famicom cartridge rather.
Well,
And you gotta give them props for that because you're doing side scrolling and
Space shooter.
what we're seeing right now, we're doing like a flight simulation first person view.
Mhm.
Kind of gameplay as well,
Yeah.
right? And are we going to see the trench run? I'm
Yes,
kind of
we
curious on how they're going to do the trench run, though.
It's top down. The trench run was
That's
very.
top
Oh no,
down view.
it's not this part yet. It's a little bit further. But yes, trench run was top down. Very frustrating. Very hard because the layout you had to memorize. You could speed your X-wing up. You could slow it down. But of course, shots were being fired at you if I remember correctly, and it was very hard. But
Right?
it was, we stuck it out back in the NES Famicom era. You only had one cartridge a year, so you stuck it out as far as you could, and you beat it with because you can't just switch into another game.
Oh, I didn't realize Luke can fly.
Mm.
Did Obi-Wan Kenobi taught him how to do that with the
Oh
Force?
yeah.
I didn't know that was. You can do that with the light side of the Force. Maybe the dark side of the Force you can levitate, sure.
Uh,
And how
have to
the
say the
hell
backgrounds were
all of those
pretty
stormtroopers can hit you?
mm.
This is not really movie accurate. All right.
I would say, yeah, this is generally the two games that I chose. I can interject with games as we go, but yes, let's move on to our next panelists. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
All right, Viraj.
Yes.
Right, so I have a look. I'm just looking at the comments section, and I believed Marlon here mentioned Star Wars on NES and Super Star Wars on the SNES. You just
Yeah,
made a
Marlon
point
Hurtado
earlier.
was Super NES. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So you made a point earlier, Joe, that there were limitations with technology, so we couldn't be as accurate as we would like. But
Yes.
when we go from 8-bit to 16-bit, that's when there was a lot more that they could do to make it as accurate as possible. Or
Very
close to the
true.
movie. I'm just going to quickly just go through some Star Wars games on the Nintendo side of things that have come out.
Yeah.
'Cause obviously, we've got Star Wars on the this is the one that you're talking about, and that's one that has an English translation patch now, and you can play it in English language with the creative. They've taken creative license with it. So you have that, and obviously then there was the Star Wars game here. Star Wars game here, as you can see, which is the Western release of Star Wars, created by I think it was Sculptured Software who made it, and this is like the official one that Lucasfilm and everyone wanted to be on board of. So you have that, and I mean, in my opinion, it's not the best Star Wars game, but I can understand where they were going. But it's graphically inferior to a game that was made in '87 in '91. So it makes me wonder what they were thinking with that. And with Empire Strikes Back, similar kind of deal with what they did here. Are they all bad games? Well, I haven't played them to much extent to really determine that, because call me shallow. I judged it on the aesthetics of the era, and it's not something that really appealed to me. And on the run up to this episode, I thought let's play some serious Star Wars games, and I will be reviewing shortly when we get to it the 16-bit ones, which is the Super Star Wars trilogy, and I made it a point to beat those games to really give you my thoughts on them. So we'll definitely get to there, but let's have a look at the Game Boy as well, because we had Star Wars games on this thing as well, and there were 3 Star Wars games on this particular device. Now, again, what you'll find is they're watered-down ports of the NES game. So you also have Star Wars, which is basically a watered-down version of the NES one that we saw earlier on the Game Boy. And again, Empire Strikes Back, another watered-down version of that we saw as well. A much more cropped-in screen, and actually are responsive. They actually play quite well, to be fair. But because it's a black and white game, seeing the detail isn't there, and it's very hard for me personally. I know different people may have different views on this, but for me, it's a little bit too jarring for it. What I also found interesting here is you have a Game Boy port of Super Return of the Jedi here. So that made it to this platform. And that has Super Game Boy support. So if you have the cartridge for your Super Nintendo, you can put the game in there and you'll get the borders and enhanced colors and all that in there. And that's basically a watered-down port of that game. Again, it plays well, but it's not the most aesthetically appealing game you want to play when it concerns Star Wars. So you have that. So that's the Game Boy games. You've got the trilogy on there in a form, which is really interesting. You have, again, we'll get to the Super Nintendo when I go into those games in detail, because those 3 games are really interesting to go through. But you still had Star Wars games being made on the Game Boy as well, on the Game Boy Color. We had 3 games. Now, the Game Boy Color was a 1997-98 system. So we're getting close to the release of Episode 1 now. So we're moving away from the original trilogy. And Episode 1, there was a Star Wars Episode 1 game on here. And you got to play as Obi-Wan Kenobi in a sort of a top-down isometric game. So you got Star Wars Episode 1, Obi-Wan's Adventures. Okay, so it's based on that movie, and it's a lovely little game for what it is. To be honest, it's quite playable. It's a nice enhanced sort of game for what it is, and playing in isometric is something that became a thing at this time, because the Game Boy Color, it had its limitations, but I think playing that game in isometric is really good. So you have that. Another Star Wars game was an adventure game that they released on the system that might have skipped a lot of people's radar. And that was Star Wars Yoda Stories. Yeah. And it's a top-down adventure game which plays in a similar vein to the Zelda games of that era. So like Oracle of Ages Seasons, and Link's Awakening style. So you have that if you're into that sort of style. And again, LucasArts put their stamp on it, so it's on there. So it's an official sort of licensed Star Wars game that they wanted to be on board with. Also at this time, going back to Episode 1, there was another Star Wars game called Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. Now, obviously, we know that to be a Nintendo 64 game or a Dreamcast game if you want the better version of it. So if we go to the game itself, it's actually a top-down version of that game, because obviously the Game Boy Color had its limitations. It couldn't really do 3D as it should do. It wouldn't have that frame rate. So they played it safe, and it's a top-down racing game of Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer, so much more primitive than the Nintendo 64 version. It plays all right for what it is. It's nothing to really shout about, but it's there. So that was the Game Boy. But as Star Wars Episode 1 had aired, we were on the dawn of a new trilogy. So we obviously had Episode 2 and Episode 3 coming out in a short time. And the successor system to the Game Boy Color, and if we're looking at the retro 2D handheld sort of thing, was the Game Boy Advance. And that had a whopping 8 Star Wars games. And that's when Star Wars really started to explode. Again, it's not just the Game Boy Advance. I know I've talked to the handhelds. Obviously, the consoles, the PS1, PS2 had Star Wars games. PS3 had Star Wars games. So there were loads of them that were being developed at the time. So if we just quickly go through this to show you just how much it was exploding. You can see here that they obviously wanted to sort of continue on with Episode 1. So you have Star Wars Jedi Power Battles, which is another really good isometric sort of thing that sort of continued with the Obi-Wan game that we saw on the color, and that's a very good game. You had New Droid Army, which is like a side-scrolling game. So you have a side-scrolling game where you play as Anakin. You also had Episode 2 as well. Again, similar side-scrolling game as well. I believe one might be isometric. I always get them confused, actually. So you have that. But they do play quite slow. And they are a bit sluggish to play. You also have Star Wars Trilogy, Apprentice of the Force. And that was going back to the original trilogy. And this uses the same artwork that they used on the DVD box set when they were re-releasing Star Wars on DVD. Because it's been a long time since they obviously Star Wars on VHS cassette. They finally gave the remastered on DVD a release, and that's what came out in 2003. And this was the game that came with it as well. So you have that, and you also got Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which is actually a side-scrolling brawler. You play as Anakin Skywalker. He's got a lightsaber, and you attack people, kind of like I don't want to be as ambitious to say it's a Streets of Rage style game, but it is, to be honest. It's tried that, but it's a bit slow. This also had a DS port as well. I don't know if the DS one plays any better, but you have that too. So you have that bit of overlap between Game Boy Advance and DS. So you have that. Another Star Wars game, which was on the platform, was a shoot 'em up, which was an interesting choice in direction they went into, but it's not something that I'm typically surprised for. So here you have Star Wars Flight of the Falcon. I've played this. It's nothing special. In fact, I don't like this game at all, if I'm being brutally honest. It's just so primitive for what it is, and it's a disappointment. So give it a go, but don't expect much from it. You might like it, but I just think it just doesn't play well. And it's a shoot 'em up in the sense that it's a 3D sort of first-person style where you've got TIE fighters coming at you and you have to shoot them. But I'm thinking it's like those Mode 7 levels that you expect on the Super Nintendo ones, but worse. So you're thinking the Game Boy Advance was capable of better technology than a Super Nintendo, but this game has this game plays worse than a Super Nintendo game. So that's my opinion on that particular one. So that's one that I wouldn't recommend, but you can give it a go if you're into that sort of thing. But I'll just have to let you know it's there for the sake of covering it. I'll give you my opinion on that, and that's what I think of it.
Hey, sometimes you just want to shoot stuff up. You don't need anything too complicated. You don't need anything too deep. Something comes at you, you blast it.
During this time, there were a lot of these sort of parodies that were going on with these sort of styles, and Lego had a shot, and Lego were sort of doing their sort of game.
Oh, Lego Star Wars is awesome. My best bud, one of my best buds, absolute favorite series.
So you have the Lego Star Wars game on the Game Boy Advance, great game, and that actually is strange how they did it. So this one was released first, and that was the prequel trilogy. I guess it made sense because that was the thing at the time, right? The movies are out. Let's do a Star Wars game based on that. And then you have Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. So they did that one afterwards to sort of, go back to that. So, both very interesting games. I think they might have had different developers and publishers, but, obviously you're showing videos of probably the console version.
If I remember correctly, the Lego Star Wars games have always been the Telltale guys. Yeah, the same guys who do the Adventure series. But yeah, Lego Star Wars.
There we go.
Awesome
So
series.
that's the Game Boy one that you see playing now.
Yeah,
Again,
Game Boy version. I think the nice thing about the Lego Star Wars series is that it's the one that actually strives to stay very accurate to the movies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very interesting that they went down on that particular route. So let's go to the Super Nintendo Star Wars games, because I think that's what I was saying. Is I've played these games all the way to the end. I've beaten these games. So I can definitely give you my thoughts on them, for sure. And these games have a reputation of being hard. Okay, I make no joke. This is not an easy game series at all. So as you can see, I've got my folder in. I put it under the S folder on Super Nintendo. And as you can see, you got Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker fighting here. And the reason I wanted that art there is because I knew that this was an iconic title for the Super Nintendo. And if I'm going to put it in the folder, I'll put it out there in the quarter of the time. So, we have that. So there we have it. So we've got Super Star Wars that came out in 1992. Then we have Super Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, 93, and then Return of the Jedi, 94. So this was like making a game a year. Okay, so very short turnaround time when they're making this. So, what makes these games outstanding is the presentation. I can't stress how good the presentation is with Super Star Wars. So we're talking graphics here. We're talking, we're talking sound in terms of the music of these games, Star Wars games, and the animation was really well done as well. And when I say presentation, I'm not talking, when the title screen shows and you see the Star Wars sort of logo sort of blast out, and you see that scrolling text, which you would with the movies. And a lot of Star Wars games have that now. I think the Super Nintendo game set the precedent for that in a lot of the Star Wars releases.
Oh shit! You can play Jar Jar.
You
can play Jar Jar here.
Yeah, in Lego
Really?
Star Wars, and you could do a lot with the Lego Star Wars games. But we moved on. We're talking Super Star Wars now.
Yeah.
With the Super Star Wars games, it's interesting. You mentioned you play Jar Jar. These ones, so with Super Star Wars, you start off as Luke on Tatooine. Okay, and you play the game, and it starts off exactly where you would expect him to start off. He's got to go and find R2 because the Jawas have got him, or whatever. Or not the Jawas have got him. He has to go get the droids anyway. So a bit of creative license there. So he's going there, and he goes into the sand. And that's what he does. So pretty cool Super Star Wars game. But what I will say about the first Super Star Wars game is it's just the first two levels are just very difficult. If you're talking about the first two levels of Super Star Wars, and I thought, oh, okay, this is a very difficult game. I'm going to stick with it, and I couldn't help but notice just the reason it was difficult is because they have an extra bit of animation when Luke jumps. So you see his knees actually bend when he jumps as well. And when he flips over, you notice that. So I think, is there lag here? No, it's just latency. And that's caused by the programmers or the people designing this game to have that extra bit of detail, that animation that they wanted. So it was a case of presentation over the practical gameplay. That's what I found. Another thing I discovered as well is that enemies can move faster than you. So you're going to take a lot of hits in Super Star Wars and Super Nintendo. So you have that. But going forward, it's after the first two levels, the game becomes a lot easier in Super Star Wars. It becomes something that you can just run through and beat. So when you get to Mos Eisley, like you would in the movie, it's quite straightforward. You can just blast all the stormtroopers and just get through the end of the level. But then the difficulty curve increases afterwards. So you have these sort of Mode 7 levels where you fly, the Millennium Falcon or whatever it is you have, your ship, your X-Wing. And it is an interesting effect that the Super Nintendo has. The problem is that the way that it plays and the way that the controller controls whatever ship it is, it's a very wobbly control mechanism. That's what I'll say with Super Star Wars with the Mode 7 level. So, when you're on Tatooine, there's a Mode 7 level where you're, in a speeder shooting the Jawas. And then when you're obviously up in space, same sort of thing. There's also the bit where you go back into being the Death Star, and this is towards the end of that game. Enemy placement is one of the things that will kill you, because there's this bit where the stormtroopers just drop out and they'll lock onto your character and they'll make him fall into a pit. And there's no way you have any odds of knowing that's going to happen. And it's an insta kill, and it's a cheap way of just killing your character. So the game designers did that. It's a horrible thing that they did, to be honest, to make the game hard for no reason. Also, there's this thing called copy and paste level design, where I went through a couple of stages, and Super Star Wars suffers from it from the least compared to the rest of the trilogy. But it's like they've copied and pasted another part of the level just to make the level longer. So it feels like, have I been here before? I'm actually progressing. It's an exact replica of what you saw before. So, you have that. But then when you get to the last bit of the game of Super Star Wars, you have the trench run level bit, which is actually really well done in this particular game. And you're fighting TIE fighters and things like that. And that's another mode 7-bit as well. But that trench run is actually really well done in the sense that you got so when you're looking at from a first person view, you got TIE fighters shooting at you. You got to shoot their projectiles so they don't hurt you. And then you have Darth Vader's. You got Darth Vader's TIE fighter. He's coming at you. I think I did a little save state here, and we can play it here, and you can have a look at it on the build. And there you go. You can see it there. The music, but yeah, you have that, and that's pretty cool. I think for Super Nintendo, utilizing Mode 7 graphics.
Wow.
That
is very cool.
Actually, this is how hard the game really is. You have to really keep going at it, and again, you get to the end, and then you hear Obi-Wan's voice. It's his voice from the movie. It says, "Use the Force, Luke," and he's triggering you to use your proton torpedoes.
Yes.
It took me a while to have the manual on this. You have to press the L button or the R button. You shoot your torpedoes, and you shoot it into the hole. It blows up the Death Star. So again, in terms of accuracy to the film, this is it. You want a film that's accurate to the film, that has great presentation, great sound effects, and even the voices from the film. This is it. That's to wait this long to make a film, a game based on that film. That was actually.
I have to say that actually looks much better as a trench run compared to the Famicom version, because that one is as close to the Star Wars arcade version, if I remember correctly, the vector graphics Star Wars arcade version, trench run, and in terms of gameplay from what it looks like.
So yeah, a very very interesting game for sure. So I liked it. I'm not going to continue playing this. There we go. Get out of it. So that's the first game in the series. So my issue with the game is it's very difficult for the first 2 levels until you meet Obi-Wan. Then it gets quite easy, and then you get intermediate difficulty towards the end. Now, the way they paced it was wrong. The game should be easy to begin with, so you get to grips with it. Then intermediate, and then difficult at the end. So they've paced it wrong. So where this game falls flat on its head isn't the presentation, sound effect, and all that. And the thing that's heartbreaking about this is the gameplay. That's where it suffers. It's the game design that's where it suffers. So,
yeah, but you're forgetting one thing, Viraj. During that time, programmers hated kids. They hated us. They hated us, and they really wanted us to suffer. So
I don't accept that, to be honest. Let's make a good game, a good product, and they just got it wrong with this particular one. So yeah, okay. A year later, then they bring out Empire Strikes Back, which was a longer game, a bigger game, a much more ambitious game. But they just because it's bigger and has a lot more on it, does it make it a better game? You'd like to think more is better, right? I don't know. I'd have to disagree with this one, because this game is hard from the get-go. From the very beginning, it's harder than Star Wars, the first Super Star Wars game, because you start off on Hoth, and they put a slip mechanic on there because it's on ice. You're walking on ice, but Luke Skywalker's sliding everywhere. The enemies are faster than you. You'll be lucky that if you don't rage quit and say, you know what, forget this, and just whack the controller down, because a lot of people have probably played this game, give up on Hoth. They could not leave that planet because that is just so hard. And I know you mentioned something with the Atari 2600 Star Wars game about being able to tie the you can do that with this game. So there's a mode 7 level where you got the A-wing or whatever it's called, the ship that he uses. And when you're doing that sort of mode 7 3D bit where you're flying your ship, you can actually, the only way you can really take him down is you have to then get a grappling hook and go around it, you know, and you can tie him up and you can make him fall. So they've actually done that. So that's, again, a great piece of attention to detail they put there. And as a good use of mode 7, but again, wobbly controls there. The controls can be better. Again, look, you've got a little demo mode here, and this is the bit where you leave and you're flying with the Millennium Falcon. Now, what this game does, which is really clever in terms of following the story, is once you leave Hoth, Luke goes his way to Dagobah, and the other lot go to Bespin, which is what happens, really, isn't it? With Lando Calrissian and all that, and there's all that goes on. So you chop and change. So okay, you leave. Once you've done that little bit with the Millennium Falcon, you then go to cut back to Luke, and then you go on to Dagobah. And this is the bit which I don't really like about the game, which is you got Luke, and he can. You can in this game get the Force now. You get Force powers because he's evolved into being Jedi, learning to be a Jedi. But you don't know anything about it. So I got past this level, and the boss on Dagobah is so hard. You actually need to have Force power. Well, you should actually have some Force powers, like the Force of you get there's like 8 Force powers. You get the Force of flight. You can throw your lightsaber in this one. So Luke actually has a lightsaber in this particular game. So he can go from lightsaber to using a blaster. Whereas the first game he didn't have a lightsaber. So he now has a lightsaber in this game as well. And you have to work out whether the lightsaber is better for you or the gun. But I obviously lightsaber is probably better for that particular boss. So you have to get these Force power-ups. I had to go backtrack on myself and get the Force power-ups. Again, Dagobah is really difficult. You're gonna die a lot there because the enemies are just so tough and powerful. The level design, again, a lot more copy and paste level design in this game. Definitely a lot more. As you can see here, this is the bit on Hoth where you're the mode 7 and you have to tie the things up and they fall.
Looks really good.
So you have this, but the game obviously then you cut to obviously the bit on Bespin, and you get to play as obviously in the first game you can play as Han Solo and the Wookiee, but in this game it's mandatory. There are levels that are designed for them in that part of the story. And obviously, there's the bit where C-3PO goes missing in Empire Strikes Back, and you have to look for him as the Wookiee. So you have to go and find him and things like that. And then there's the bit where there are boss battles on there, but they're quite simple at that point. But the Bespin level is quite hard because of the copy and paste level design. Enemy placement is annoying as well. So that's what I will say about Bespin. It's just an annoying part of the game, and there is one continuity error because when you have to fight Boba Fett in this game, because remember he takes Han Solo, and you fight him as Chewbacca, and when you take him out, then he goes into his little ship, which is called Slave One. So he's trying to get away, and you're fighting him, and then you shoot his ship, and you blow it up. So you might hang about. He didn't blow his ship up in the movie. He got away with Han Solo. That doesn't make sense. What, you're going to blow up Han Solo in Carbonite? What is this? So there was a bit of a continuity error there. But other than that, the game plays really well. That part of the game played well when you beat him, and it starts to get better when you get to the point where you go back to Luke. He then joins them on Bespin. And I didn't mind the last bit with Luke Skywalker when he has to face and fight his father, Darth Vader, and that's obviously there. And again, you hear Darth Vader's voice in this game, so when he's fighting him and he goes impressive, that's a voice, a soundbite in the film. They use that. So so the one thing I liked about this game the most is that last battle with Darth Vader. If we go into it, I do have a little save state that I left here for this purpose. So you can see, there is a strategy in place. Obviously, you see all these little bulbs down here. They were all the way down here. It's a long slog, this battle, and you have to it's basically a hit and run tactics, guerrilla tactics. You hit Vader, you have to move back. You hit him, you move back, and you need to have all the Force power ups. So as you can see here, I'm going through all my Force power ups. Yeah. So you can heal as well. You got all these other things that let you fly. But in all fairness, the heal force is the best one. But again, this last fight with Vader is epic, to be fair.
Oh, he doesn't turn into a scorpion when you hit him. Come on. What kind of Star Wars game is
Or a
this?
shark.
He didn't do that in the movie, so I don't know. The Famicom game that we don't really care about.
Yeah.
So
What kind of Star Wars game is this? No Star Wars Creator Scorpion version. This sucks.
But again, I die. Again, a very good, very. Because I like that last fight. That's what the one thing I like about Empire Strikes Back. But you have to play through the whole game, and the level before this is difficult as well. So it is a slog to go through. I can't say I enjoyed playing this game. I mean, if it didn't have the Star Wars name on it, I think it would just be forgotten to time. If I'm being honest, I don't know why IGN rated it as like 87 out of like the top 100 Super Nintendo games of all time. I think it's to do with the presentation. To be fair,
Yeah, probably. You know, it got as close to how the movies looked as possible during that era.
Yeah, but yeah, so I actually think the first Super Star Wars game is better than its sequel. I think the sequel, even though it's a bigger game and you get more for your money, it's just not a game you'll enjoy. The second one, after the first two hard stages, you can kind of enjoy that game. With this one, you have to wait all the way to the end to enjoy that last fight with Vader if you're into that sort of long slog of a battle. But I think fundamentally, there's a lot more copy and paste in terms of level design, a lot more unforgivable aspects where you're just going to take damage. And if you're a game designer or if you're going to play a video game, you want to have at least a half odds of coming back from fighting that villain in the stage or the enemy in the stage to not be able to get hit. Some of these things, like you're going to take damage, and sometimes it's an insta kill. The problem with the Super Nintendo, as we know, is it had a cropped screen, it didn't have a resolution as good as, say, Sega Mega Drive. And you have the L and R buttons, and they let you pan the camera up and down. So if you're trying to go down a platform, you can pan it down to see if there's actually a platform below, and hopefully there is one. But sometimes you just have to do a blind jump, and you're going to die. That's the truth. Like they've designed the game so you are going to die, and it is just painful when you've gone and you have to go all the way back that chip and go through all that again. So it feels like a slog, and that's why I say because when you die, it's so unforgiving, and you just don't want to go through all that again. That's the truth. So that's my thoughts on Empire. It's probably, in my opinion, the worst of the Super Star Wars trilogy. But we got another game called Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi, which is the last of this trilogy. And they improve on a few things. To go through all the forces, you had to press the select button and press the LNR, and it was a bit of a pain if you wanted to select the force. Now you can just press the select button and land on whatever force you want. Again, the presentation throughout all three of these games is consistent. The art design is consistent. The music is consistent. In all fairness, in the way that you plays, it's quite consistent. And this game, you could argue this or the first game is the better one. I'm pretty much tied. I'm not too sure. I haven't decided whether I like this one more than the first. I will say that again, this game has a difficulty curve that's correct for it, though. So it's still difficult when you start, okay, but it does get harder as it goes along. So they got that right, but it still is a hard game, but not as hard as, shall we say, the first one where you began, and the second one was just ridiculously hard. It follows the film, as you would expect it to. The first one followed the film, the second one followed the film, this one follows the film. You can play as Leia in all her forms. So you got this one as her being attacker. You actually play as Slave Girl Leia as well later on in the game, which I can see Sir Joe's nodding his head. Yeah, I want to see that. You can only play him once, but you can play as her once in that special stage that is basically where she comes after Jabba the Hutt, who's one of the bosses. There is a sharp incline in terms of difficulty, but you'll get used to it. You don't have to worry about getting all these forced power-ups like you had to with the second game and look for them in Dagobah, which was really difficult. You can play as Wicket as well. So, again, when you get to... what's the name of that moon? I can't forget the name of the moon planet, whatever it's called. You can play as Wicket in those stages when you do...
Endor?
Endor?
Yeah.
Endor.
Moon
With the
Endor.
Ewok.
Moon of Endor. Ewok.
Yeah, so you can do that. So what I will say is Luke. Oh yeah, and in this one you can only use your lightsaber as Luke. He's a Jedi now. There's no need for him to have a blaster. So you have that. So in the first game, blaster only. Second game, you can use both. This game, you just use your lightsaber, man. That's basically it. So Again, you have stages where you play exclusively as Luke because he's got his own path that he has to follow. And again, you've got a split path with Leia and all the others. You might be able to play with all each of the characters in whatever level you want. So you have that level of replay value there. But again, this game, it's probably intermediary difficult. But what you see here is the last stage of that game where you have to make that exit after killing the Emperor. And I thought, okay, killing the Emperor is a bit difficult because he uses lightning force on you. But actually, killing the Emperor was easier than killing Vader in the second game as a last boss. Because I found my tactic quite easy in how to take him out. But this is the hardest part. Obviously, when you're making that exit, this is the first part of the level. You've got to sort of blast the tires away.
Oh, okay. So you're fighting TIE fighters. I thought that was the point of view of the Emperor when he was thrown down the shaft.
No, there's a little cutscene where you see that, but no. So you have to escape, and you have to hold the B button and race through this. And again, wobbly controls. The hardest part of the hardest part of the entire Super Star Wars trilogy is the last level of Return of the Jedi. I died so many times, and you have to be quick, and it's just the shoddy controls in here. So that's why I kind of prefer the first game more, because there are parts of this game which is relentlessly difficult. Like look at what you're seeing there in that demo, like with that laser blast coming at Han Solo. It's like you've got no chance. You're going to get killed. The first time you will get killed. It's just one of those things you don't know what to expect. So there's a good game in all three of these games somewhere, apart from the second one, really. There's good parts of them, to be fair. But I think the first game is probably the best of the trilogy, to be honest, simply because even though it's not balanced correctly, the levels that they did in there was good. With this one, there's a lot of copy and paste level design. Okay, you get to choose other characters and whatever, and they have their own sort of things. A lot that they put into the second two games. It's just that they're just notoriously unnecessarily difficult. And you're talking to a guy who grew up on Sega Mega Drive, and that is a platform that has difficult games. But this is difficult to the point where it's unforgiving, and it sucks the joy out of wanting to play the games. That's my point. Now, who are these games designed for? The Star Wars fans? That being said, should you not play these games? That's really the question. I think you should play these games just to see what I'm saying is true, and to see if it's for you, if you want that challenge. They are good games because I like the presentation. I like if you're a fan of the original trilogy, they're definitely games you want to try out because they're there's just so much lineage, so much. It made me want to watch the film because it's very well. It's pretty tied. It's close to the film, So what I will say is that give all three of these games a go and judge it for yourselves. But I wouldn't say that they're great games. They're good games for what they are, and they utilize the Super Nintendo for its capabilities, but they could have done a lot better in terms of gameplay and design and things like that. So there you go.
I would say a good way to enjoy retro games is to always place your mindset on the era of when they were developed. Think about the context of when they came out. Imagine the fact that there was nothing that came before it that was like it at all. So it's like coming into it with a fresh set of eyes. And I guess in Viraj's case, it's sad to say he's had exposure to a lot of better games, not just in the Star Wars series, but also in
barbecue. I can see what they've done with the trilogy, and I'll give you my rating. I think the first Star Wars game 6.5 out of 10. And
okay.
The other two maybe 6 out of 10, 6.3 out of 10 with that last one. So they're very close, to be honest. But I think that was more of a more balanced experience. Even though these are actually longer games, there's more game in these two than this one. I just think that in the way that it plays, and the only problem with this game is that they got the difficulty factor in different orders, and yes, there's latency, but that's spread across all of it. But when they try to add actors like features like force powers, for example, in Empire Strikes Back, and you had no idea where you had to get the force from, you had to actually look at a manual or an FAQ. Oh, that's what I'm gonna do. And then even then, you're blind. You're looking throughout the whole map for these invisible force powers you get in Dagobah. It's like, come on, guys! Like, I'm looking at this whole map, like, because the levels are a lot bigger, and you're looking for where it is. Is it on this ledge? Is it on that platform? Is it there? It's like it becomes a fetch quest. You're like, I'm above this sort of nonsense. I've got better things to do than waste my time looking for this, and you just get really frustrated with it. So that's why I didn't like Empire, because you get bogged down and slowed down. And with Return of the Jedi, even though you don't have that, you already have your Force powers. You're not looking for them, which is good. It's just that the game, it's a lot of copy and paste, in terms of the way the level design is and the way the enemy placement is, and it's just unforgiving, unnecessarily, just like this game was. But yeah, I mean, I've given you my thoughts on them. I still think that any Super Nintendo or a person into Super Nintendo gaming and Star Wars should give these games a go in spite of my rating. I mean, you can tell me if I'm being too harsh. But the way these games really fall flat on gameplay, and that's really sad, because the games have really good presentation, outstanding attention to detail, follows the stories like anything. It's just that aspect. So maybe game designers, as you said, were probably tougher back then, maybe, but they should have balanced the games a bit better, in my opinion, to make them more fun. And to me, video games should be a lot more fun. They shouldn't be so unforgiving. But that's my final thoughts on the Star Wars trilogy. What do you guys think?
Actually, I'm interested to ask JDM first. JDM, have you played any of these Super NES games? Up, mute.
Sorry about that.
No
I
problem.
can't stop looking at myself in the screen because I am really channeling
JDM is
this.
admiring himself. Okay.
I really look like Ben
Kylo
Solo
Ren.
in this.
You
There
got
you
Kylo
go.
Ren on you, man. You got Kylo Ren. But,
Yeah. So,
Well,
anyways, I played these games on the Anbernic that I have,
yes.
and it's really good to look at the visuals. It had proper controls, but as what Viraj said, it's difficult if you're not a fan of platformer games like Mega Man or Castlevania. You'll really get frustrated with the difficulty, because for myself, I'm not really a fan of platformer games or games of this genre. But it's it's good. It's a good game to experience, especially when you're playing the 16-bit, because I think it's harder to play the 8-bit games than these games, because you have a lot more of controls, and controls are much more responsive in the 16-bit era compared to the previous generations. Like, I played that NES version of Star Wars, the one that looks like Mega Man.
okay.
When the one that starts as a top-down
You're in the
look,
speed.
driving the speeder, right? Then it went directly inside the cave, and it's funny how you could see how Luke can just casually go inside the cave or the cantina with the speeder, right? And imagine all those people shocked when Luke comes in with the speeder right in front of them. So I played. It's all good for me. I didn't progress much because, as I've said, I'm not really into platformers. But the visuals, though, it looks good, and the audio, well, the presentation itself, it looks good. But maybe if I have more time to play it, then that's the time I will be able to appreciate much more.
I mean, I wouldn't. It's not. I wouldn't say any of these Super Star Wars games are games you need to play before you die. But if you're a Star Wars fan, you should play them. That's what I
Yeah.
will say. That's my thoughts on them. You mentioned latency and lag on 16-bit games. There should be less than 8-bit games,
Yeah.
but of course, those of us who play games know that sadly isn't the case with a lot of these games. I would say that there's probably more latency. There's latency in the Super Star Wars games, and that's not caused by the technology or the hardware. It's to do with the designers. And what it is, and I looked at it, is when Luke jumps, he bends his knee. So because they've over-engineered the animation, there's going to be latency. It's in the game design for it to be that way. So there's no latency inherently because of the technology, it's because of the game design. and that's just something that I think is just more style over substance, and that's what's happened with these games. I think so. Dan's actually left an interesting comment here, and he'll be doing a video soon on the show. He said, even from a retro perspective, the Super Star Wars games are very messy and inconsistent. Viraj is spot on. Empire is generally it's a bad game. Give it the presentation of another IP, and it would be slated. And he's absolutely right. If it wasn't for the outstanding presentation that they put into these games, I think these games would be totally slated. But to be honest, nobody ever really talks about the Super Star Wars games when I talk about Super Nintendo. They might mention it in a footnote, but nobody says, "Oh, these are really good games." Now, Return of the Jedi is rated 17th in the top 100 best Super Nintendo games of all time.
17.
17th, yeah. According to IGN. Okay, so I don't really rate them, but I don't know why they're saying that 17th. They're probably better games than this, but
You can't spell ignorant without IGN. Anyway,
there you go.
I think
Yeah.
another reason why it's hard for me because of the visuals of the 16-bit.
Mm.
It kind
It's
of
appealing. It's
yeah.
appealing to look at. That's why I
Yeah.
play these games. They're more appealing. The technology was there to give these games a good run, to be faithful to the movies, and they did that in terms of the presentation. But the gameplay is where you're slacking, buddy. You're slacking.
Yeah.
That's where it was, in my opinion.
Right.
I'm curious about Miss Eileen's impressions. Have you played these, Miss Eileen? I know you're an action game person. Have you ever played this, or if you haven't, would something like this interest you?
I haven't played any of these games, but I would say they do appeal to me. Again, the art itself, the presentation, it's very appealing and it's very colorful. And the gameplay it also looks quite fun. From all the selections that Sir Grudge has showed us, I would say I think I would love to try the one on the Game Boy Advance, the Lego Star Wars. The gameplay is very appealing to me, even though you've described that there was this latency because of the animation they wanted to present with the bending of the knee, because they put aesthetics over practicality of the game. I think that would be down my alley. But on the SNES, because the Super Nintendo is also one of my favorite platforms, I think I would like to try the Return of the Jedi one, or maybe even Empire Strikes Back, despite the bad reputation with the.
Give them all a go, because I want to talk to you. I want you to talk to yourself, but I mean, give them all a go because it's worth it. But you will get frustrated. I promise you. That's a promise. You will get frustrated on any of these games. This is one of those things. Why is this happening? Why does this guy come out of nowhere and blast me and bounce me off this platform and make me fall into a grave? Into this ditch. Why did this happen? Why did this random death happen? How do I kill this boss? I mean, how many times do I have to go at him? And you have to find a pattern. And I suppose there are problem-solving elements in these games. That's why I said with Super Star Wars, the first one, there's a good game in there somewhere. I like the whole problem-solving aspect as to how do I find a technique to dodge and fight these bosses. And I did enjoy the boss battles in these games. Some are easier than others, but that's one thing I will say about them. They had some interesting boss battles, and they were true to the franchise. And
I find it kind of interesting, Viraj, and it is kind of telling that if somebody mentions the SNES, it's very infrequent that somebody mentions the Star Wars games on it.
Yeah.
It's the fact that when you mention a game platform, you will always pull up your favorite game, and some people will pull up Sony PlayStation, Metal Gear Solid. Somebody will pull up Atari, ET. But when somebody pulls up the Super NES, nobody pulls up Star Wars. That's kind of telling, actually.
Yeah, but anyway, it's what it is, I guess.
All right, interesting. As the veteran here, Joe, or as Princess Leia herself, Joe, would you give these games a go?
Right. Before I respond, I have a question to Sir Viraj regarding with his selections. Do I look pretty?
I think you look very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Your mother would
okay.
Mother, we watching this right now. Why not have a daughter? That's what should be thinking. I should have had a daughter.
No. All right. So, in regarding with the Star Wars games that Sir Viraj just mentioned, no? And this is maybe a good thing or a bad thing. with the 8-bit and the 16-bit games, Star Wars games rather. Uh, what else can you do gameplay wise? I mean, most of the games that we have back then is just side-scrolling platformer games. I mean, what else can you do? I mean,
Well,
I'm like gameplay, gameplay and graphic wise, right?
I will say
And
that
not to mention, uh, if you are the type of person who really loves Star Wars, like ever since ever since New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi, all the original trilogy, and then playing the 8-bit and the 16-bit games, and you're really enthralled with the storyline and the lore. One of the things that I've noticed is that if Star Wars is a very is a very specific kind of IP, in a sense that the thing that makes Star Wars, one of the things is its iconography. If you don't hear the lights, if you don't hear the sounds, if you don't see the actual, if you don't see the lightsabers, you don't see the TIE fighters, if you don't see R2D2, C3PO, if you don't see the Millennium Falcon, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. If you know what I mean.
Yes, and this
Like,
is what I'm trying to say, which is
if you took Star Wars out of the title, it can be anything.
okay.
Could be anything. The 8-bit game and the 16-bit game, Star Wars games, could be anything.
I
Take out Star Wars into it.
I mean, if you take the Star Wars title out, you say it could be anything, but I think I disagree with you because this clearly has the sounds from Star Wars. You've got the voice actors in there.
Right.
You've got the iconography with Force. You got that. You have all the characters. You got their faces. You can see them in the cutscenes. You know,
they do. But in terms of the gameplay,
Star Wars game.
For example,
experience. And what kept me going? Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. As a fan of Star Wars, what kept me going is I want to see what happens next. Is it true to the film? That's what kept me going. What's going to happen next in this story? Where have they gone? So that's what kept me going, in spite of how difficult it was. It did have those iconic sound effects with the blasters and the lightsabers and all that. So you say that. Maybe with the 8-bit ones, you could say you take Star Wars title. Even then, I disagree because they have some iconic imagery. But this one is imagery.
And if you are going to expect that they're going to follow the movie scene by scene, you're not gonna get that, especially with the 8-bit and 16-bit games.
Yeah.
Although that being said, the Game Boy Advance Star Wars games were a little bit more faithful to the storyline, and considering it's in Lego, I mean, take the fact it's Lego. They're made out of Legos. They're trying to make sure that they're staying truthful with the storyline. I mean, gameplay wise, okay, you have a little bit more leeway in there, but you know, you had to make the gameplay a bit more enjoyable for the actual players. Not to mention the players who just wants to play Lego, to play Star Wars, and those people who actually know Star Wars.
Yes. So I will say this: towards the turn of the 20th century, you know, in the 2000s, video game industry had gotten bigger and bigger. Back in this time, we had small development teams making these games, and they had short turnaround times, and they did what they could with what they had. With the Lego Star Wars team, you had a bigger team. You had a lot more you could do with it. You could make it more faithful to the source material, better technology, better animation, better graphics, a lot more you can pump into it. So, you know, come on, give these guys a bit of credit. They were 10 years behind, but they pioneered this game and set a standard. So then they could look at that as the benchmark and think, okay, what are we going to do with this prequel trilogy of games, and how are we going to do this? Look at Star Wars Episode 1 Race on Nintendo 64. That is a Star Wars game. Yeah, that is out incredible. I thought that was like the first major Star Wars game that actually said Star Wars to me. That hit me because I played these way after. I think the first Star Wars games I ever played was Star Wars Arcade, which is the Sega version, the Model 1 hardware, and Episode 1 Racer. You know, and they were iconic Star Wars games, and obviously they were made after these, but really, really a lot more attention to detail, better graphics, better programming talent as well, in terms of the technology as well, that it was aided by it. So I have to agree to disagree on that one. I mean, you take away the Star Wars title on even the Super Nintendo ones, you know it's a Star Wars game, to be honest, because there's just so much in there that tells you it's a Star Wars game. You'd have to be living under a rock if you don't think this is a Star Wars game if you don't have this title. You know, it's obvious. And even the NES ones as well, I'll say. But
Yeah.
anyway, this is my thoughts on that.
All
It's a
right.
Star Wars game if you have the Scorpion
It's
Yeah,
not a Star
or
Wars
the
one-
game.
shark.
that's the one
Vader
where
doesn't
that's a bastard. That game's a bastard because you know that's just an abomination, but it plays really well, and you'd want to play that game. That's the funny thing. It's interesting because you want to see how it does. In this case, you want to see how true it is to the story, and that one you see how far fetched is it from the story. That's what
Oh
you want
yeah,
to. You want to play that one.
absolutely. But you took what you could back then and
Took what you could.
enjoyed it.
I mean, that's the best that we could hope for that during the 90s. I mean, sure. I mean, like Sir Joel mentioned, we take what we can get. But
Yeah.
of course, as
But we got
the
some
years go
comments.
on, technology goes on as well. All right, so let's move to a little bit more, a little bit more modern-ish.
I just want
Um,
to look at some of the comments here. So we got Marlon who mentioned Star Wars racing. Yeah, the pod racing game
Oh, yeah.
was great.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
We got so Dan who's saying again. I'd love to see Miss AI's reaction to Empire. And as much as I like Sir Joe's buns, what buns is he talking about? Okay.
hot cross buns,
Yeah, okay, fine, okay.
Okay.
and I got my ass buns as well.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I know.
He's mentioning those, And he's
Not
saying
mentioning
that
those.
mascara
All
because
right.
it looks like you have
So,
I'm actually surprised
so,
Dan hasn't
who's
mentioned
next?
the DOS games yet. Mhm. Anyway, yeah, go ahead, John.
Are you wearing mascara? Because so Dan wants to know.
Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to find out, Sir Dan. All right, who's next?
All right, who wants to go next? Who wants to present their Star Wars early favorites? Oh,
I
go
will
ahead.
later on if we got time, and I'll be looking at the Sega side of Star Wars.
All right,
Hmm.
that sounds fine. Okay, JDM or Miss Eileen, who wants to go first?
I think Miss Ice Game's a little bit more modern, so let's go with Sir JDM.
All right, JDM, let's go for it. What do you got?
All right, so stay away from those 8-bit and 16-bit games. Here's the real games that you should play on the PS1.
Let's hear 'em.
Oh,
So, first, it's going to be Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Just like the previous games that were mentioned earlier, um, Star Wars, the Episode 4, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. This one is well adapted game from from Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So you start out as you play as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the story starts exactly where the episode 1 started in the trade. Was it the Trade Federation, right?
Trade Federation.
Yeah.
Trade.
So yes, so it follows the
The one with
Sorry,
the
when-
Asian aliens.
Yeah. Absolutely.
you, Jedi.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Where's the
So-
blood?
We are scared of the Emperor.
Yes.
Oh,
that's
thank
true.
you.
There you go. That's it.
So.
It's getting through the door. And so this is, I think this is one of the first games that at least one of the first Star Wars games for the PS1 that started the 3D era. Not sure if it's the first one because you have those PC games. Well, anyway, you start to play as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Trade Federation. They were trying to negotiate with the
With the Asian aliens?
yes, and then you see it has cutscenes, by the way, like this one. I think this is the time where the what were they called before they were called the Empire? I think it's the one with the droids. I'm not
And I'm
sure.
not sure
What.
what planet this is.
This is the land of the guns, and
Uh,
this is the first time I saw Jar Jar
Jar Jar.
Binks. Yeah, and yeah, he met Jar Jar Binks in this part, and they were trying to go to the place where the guns live underwater, just
Right.
like in the movie. So they trying to fend off those. Oh, look at that! They're trying to fend off those droids. I, I forgot what they were called before they became the Empire. Nah, already forgot.
Oh no no no.
Um,
Separatist.
yes, I think that's the one.
You mean the
So they,
Republic? 'Cause-
no,
No, there's the Republic and then the Separatist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mean the Separatists? What are you talking about?
it's a
You
group
know the
of
Separatist?
the yeah.
That's the Trade Federation. That had nothing to do with the Separatists. They were just bitches. That's what
No,
they were.
the separatist I think was from the Attack of the Clones. That's
Yeah.
where they started.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Not in the first, not in the first in episode 1. So you can play as Obi-Wan with the lightsaber, and I think he can do double jump.
Mm.
Then as you progress in the game, you can also play as other characters like Qui-Gon Jinn.
What's he
You
doing to that
also
rock?
have I don't
What's
know
he
why
doing?
he's humping
You
the
do
rock.
that?
He's humping the rock.
This is me.
I mean, I
Force
think
humping
Johnson
the
would have
rock.
something to say
Um,
about that. But anyway,
Off
continue.
and off.
And I like the visuals here because it's like if you have played Tomb Raider, it's something like that. The forest and
It's kind of mix of it's kind
yeah,
of mix of Tomb Raider and Metal Gear Solid, kind of.
yeah. Um, and this is like tank control. No, kind of like tank controls. They haven't really improved the analog controls yet, where you
Oh
can
shit!
run
So
in four directions.
it's tank controls.
Yes.
Oh fuck this!
And who are the other characters in here? You can play as the captain, the pilot captain. I forgot his name. Captain Panaka, I guess. And you can also play as, if I remember correctly, Padme.
Mm.
I
Padme.
think in the later in the game. Then what I like about this game is, although it's not exactly what it doesn't really follow the story like in the movie, but somehow they tried to incorporate like alternate timelines, or like you know what, while Obi-Wan is in the ship trying to guard the ship, because when they went to was it Tatooine or Dantooine where they went to, Qui-Gon Jinn is doing some fetch quest
Yeah. Stafford.
to yeah, to, I'm not sure what how the story goes in the game, but you are
Yeah.
trying to get those parts that they need
Oh, yeah.
for the ship to get repaired. I think
Yeah.
it's a coupler, something like that. And they encounter Anakin. They also they try to save him from Watto, the that alien that flies, who Anakin was
The
working
Jewish
for.
alien.
Yes, the alien with the wings. Little one with the wings. And
Yeah.
the voice was farting. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Oh,
And
where's
so
the
you can
money? Oh, you need to pay me.
Work on
Yes.
me.
I need money.
those
Ah,
Jedi mind
money.
tricks don't only money. No.
Only
No
money.
tricks, only money. Something like that.
Oh, give me
Then
money for do two slaves, huh? Give me money.
so this one is the place where the gun lives. Actually, you don't really have to fight them. The guns, you can just use the force to make them to push them away from where you're going to. And I think this guy is a sadist, by the way, because he's trying to kill those guns, um those guns out of the way. So as you
They're in
progress, you can
okay.
play.
Naboo. They're
Yeah,
in Naboo. Okay. Naboo.
and in the swamps of Nabu,
Yeah.
underneath is the guns, right? So
Yeah.
so Nabu and gun I Otogonga, was it Otogonga, the name of the gun uh city underwater. So they were trying to do like a truce between Nabu and the guns so they can fight off the Trade Federation.
You mean an alliance?
So
An alliance.
yeah, alliance, yeah.
Okay.
And so along the way you can play as Qui-Gon Jinn as well. I think that's in Tatooine. Then you can play as Captain Panaka, and then you go back to Obi-Wan. And I think I played this game back in 2000 when it was first released. And actually the first copy that I bought is it's like a prototype because when you die, it doesn't it doesn't show the game over screen. It just freezes. Then sometimes there's a debug mode that you can use to skip a level. Not sure where I got that, but um, eventually I borrowed um, the perfected game from one of my friends, and I was able to finish it. So yeah, that's episode one, The Phantom Menace. So that's for the PS1. Came out right after the movie. I think they were already developing this game together with while they're shooting the movie. So because it came out like when the movie came out, it was released as well after a few months.
What?
Yeah.
So, but basically, what you're saying is, Luke. I mean, this is something that's very true with LucasArts. When LucasArts, before LucasArts got disbanded by Disney, and that happened, LucasArts actually had a good finger on the pulse when it came to their own IPs. You know, to make sure that it was faithful to the source material. And that's another reason why the Star Wars games with that LucasArts stamp on it, such as the Super Star Wars games and the NES ones and this particular one, are pretty true to the source material in terms of the way they look. Obviously, that's obviously when that's in the movie where you see these big fish and little fish coming after you. But yeah, it's like for the time it looks like a very fun game to play for sure. It looks nice. Anyway. I'm curious to see what that battle between these guys and Darth Maul would be like, because that was such a dynamic scene in any Star Wars film. I mean, I think the best lightsaber battle in any of the Star Wars film was that. You know, when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are taking on Darth Maul. I think that's like one to top, in my opinion, anyway.
Right. So this game, they're already in Naboo in this part. So there's an epic battle in the final level of the game, where Obi-Wan is trying to fight Darth Maul, who just revealed himself. And you can actually see Qui-Gon die in this game because Obi-Wan was trying to follow them. I remember when they got separated, and while Qui-Gon Jinn was fighting Darth Maul, he was doing some platforming things. So once he caught up with him, you eventually see Qui-Gon die in this game, and um, in Avenge, he was able to defeat. Obi-Wan was able to defeat Darth Maul, and yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn died on a bench. What?
No, in Revenge.
for
Ah.
revenge, you know.
For
Oh,
revenge.
okay. I thought I misheard that. What?
That would be a very comfortable way to die. If you
Oh,
died
yeah.
on a bench, let me just rest here and
Oh yeah,
be one with the
I
force.
do that. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is, so if this game came out like exactly the same time with the movie, if you didn't watch the movie and you play the game, then basically you're gonna be spoiled of what happens.
Yeah, this
kind
kind of.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh,
I
like
mean,
did they actually show how Qui-Gon Jinn dies?
Yeah,
Like is it
they
like scene per scene or what?
not a cutscene, but an in-game sequence. You know
mhm.
when you were jumping, you, why? No, Obi-Wan is doing these platforming things while he got separated from the two. When you get near those what do you call this? Those like these force fields, those red force fields.
Oh yeah.
When you get near it, a cutscene will show not an FMV but a cutscene in-game cutscene
Right.
Mhm.
where Qui-Gon Jinn will get
Bites it.
slashed by
Okay.
bites the dust, then eventually you'll go through those force fields and fight Darth Maul himself.
Mhm.
Right. I think I'm not sure if Lego Star Wars did it, but I think this is one of those first Star Wars games where you can actually deflect laser beams using your lightsaber.
Yeah,
Star Saver. Come
yeah.
on, Joe.
Star saber.
Well,
A different IP, ladies and gentlemen. That's
I think it's
Star Wars as well, because on the GBA games you can deflect lightsaber beams.
Yes,
so
you can.
deflect particles
Yeah.
on the GBA game before even the Lego Star Wars was even a thing. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it's inevitable, and even the the Super Star Wars games, you can actually block using the lightsaber. So any blasters that come to you, they'll also ricochet back as well. So actually, Super Star Wars first. So yeah, you can do that in Super Star Wars. But obviously, this is much more advanced in terms of like
Yeah.
it's 3D. It's really the
3D, right?
first Star Wars game that did it. Yeah, very good.
All right, good choice, JDM. So
I think this the player in this video is kind of a sadist.
yeah.
Like, it's trying to kill as much people in Naboo. What?
I mean,
What?
haven't we all tried to do that? You know, go into a game where you
So,
realize,
so,
hey, I
basic,
could do like
so
this.
basically, this is the Grand Theft Auto of Star Wars.
Yeah. And it's funny that they don't have this. They don't get like red eyes when killing those innocent people
Oh
because
yeah, well there you go.
I
remember
don't know.
when you
Maybe Obi-Wan really wants to be a Sith.
Well, yeah.
yeah.
All
So
right,
there
good
you go.
choice, JDM.
Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So
Mhm.
if you're a PS1 fan, you might have played it, and if you haven't, you just might want to try it sometime.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Although
Yeah.
I have to say, PlayStation One graphics have become very dated nowadays, especially with they're doing their very best to make 3D environments of everything. But for gameplay purposes, yeah, it looks like it might be a little bit of fun to go through once. I mean, I'm not a huge prequel fanatic per se, original trilogy forever. But yes, I would probably give this a go because of the fact that, well, lightsabers,
Would
and
you really?
I mean, somehow I would do the machete cut on it because Well, in the movie, I would do machete cut because of the fact that I will watch the Star Wars movies, episode 4, 5, then 2, 3, and 6. I'll skip over 1 completely, but the gameplay on this one looks like it might be. It looks like it might be fun.
What's
I
wrong
give
with
it a
the
go.
one? What's your beef?
My beef with 1, it makes no sense. It
What do you
has
mean it
no
makes no
place in
sense?
the entire series. The only thing that I would really enjoy with episode 1 would be the lightsaber battles. But aside from that, Jar Jar inconsequential.
What?
Anakin and Padme's
I like Jar Jar.
romance.
Nothing wrong with
Ana-
Jar Jar. He's all right, man.
Anakin and Padme's romance completely icky because of the age difference.
There
So
was no-
Not really.
Qui-Gon
If
Jinn
if
eventually
we're
doesn't really
going by
matter.
Star Wars culture, that's legal.
Well, I guess, yeah, that's true. And Qui-Gon Jinn eventually doesn't even matter. About the only factor that Qui-Gon Jinn plays into this is the fact that if he had survived this fight, Anakin would never have turned out the way that he would have. That's basically it.
I'm not going to go into this with you. So
Yeah.
anyway, the comment section. So you got Ray. He says Jar Jar was the real Phantom Menace.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's that fan theory that Jar Jar was actually supposed to be a hidden Sith.
Yeah, they were forced to change the original fan because I think he was pretty seen as too goofy. So you have that. Then Dan goes, little known fact, you can enter a cheat code into this game, which lets Jar Jar Binks talk dirty to you. This game fact may contain like if Jar Jar, you want Jar Jar to talk dirty with you, you can have that, you can try it. So you have that. Also, Qui-Gon sitting on the bench. My mama says life is like a box of chocolates. So there you go. So yeah, but I mean, yeah. So but yeah, going back to your point that you made, Sir John, about this game. Yes, PS1 graphics have dated poorly, sadly, and it would be nice for them to do an enhanced port on this. But I don't think they ever will because licensing, etc., that never happened. This game will be locked away. However, what I will say to compliment this game is during that 5th generation, they were learning to program in 3D, and there were a lot of games that were just not only did they look blocky like this, but they played bad. This is like a game that actually plays good, and it looks like a game that actually punches above its weight, and it looks like a game that I could probably enjoy. So, props for you to show us this game. It looks like it's a decent one for an early 3D title. And I just want to stress that there are just a lot of pants games out there that were on the 32-bit, 64-bit systems, and this looks like a decent one, even though the graphics have aged. And I think the problem with PS1 is unless you sort of, I believe this. I could be, you say, Viraj, you know what, you're wrong. But I think unless you grew up with PS1, you're never going to want to go back and play a PS1 game because the graphics just look painful in 3D. That's just me.
But then again, some games on PS1 do play well. Star Ixiom, the Resident Evil series, despite the tank controls,
You wouldn't play that though. You play the GameCube Resident Evil because they look so much better.
I guess that's true.
The PS games that you're talking about, they made enhanced ports to other platforms, and that's the way you play it. Final Fantasy VII, they've made an enhanced port to it. Forget the remake. They made an enhanced port on the Switch. They've actually the creme de la creme of the PS1. They've actually, like Spyro the Dragon. It's a favorite game of mine. They've ported it. Medieval, they've ported it and made an enhanced version of it. So all the good games that were worth doing the work on, they've done. I'm not saying that's all of them, and I could be wrong. I could be missing a few. Okay, but yeah, a lot of the PS1 games, the way they look,
Yeah, it's basically the same across the board. There's no platform that has 100%, great games. I'd say maybe a good top 20%, and the rest is shovelware, generally. So,
my point is the fact that they were learning to program early in 3D. The games are not aesthetically pleasing or enticing for someone who didn't grow up with the platform to want to play it. And you look at it, you think, ugh, yucky. I have a friend who was born in 1995, and she says to me, look, I can't play even PS1 games I struggle with now.
the same way that you can't play Atari 2600 games.
No, that's different. That's different. To do with the graphics, to do with the fact that the games are too simplistic. Simplistic, and I'll get bored very quickly with them. It needs to have that third, not when I say it needs to have a third dimension, not that it has to be 3D. It needs to have more depth. Atari 2600 games do not have depth. and that's where the 8-bit, the later
All right,
8-bit.
now you just touched off an entire generation, Viraj, with that statement. You just touched off an entire generation. The 70s kids, they're gonna pop up in our chats and they're gonna hunt you down.
But they'll have to get their walking sticks away, and they'll have to get some
You do realize how painful those walking sticks are when they hit you, right?
you have to be quick enough. You have to be quick enough. You have to use your force.
Some of them are made of kamagong. It's a local wood that hurts bad when it hits. Although, speaking of dying peacefully on a bench, I suddenly remembered Ezio did that, right? In Assassin's Creed, Ezio Auditore. Anyway, let's get back to JDM. Second game, JDM. What's your second game of choice?
Okay, so second game for me still for the PS1, it's called Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles. So it's almost like an upgrade to the first to the previous game. So you have a full blown game here. So when you notice the Phantom Menace game, they were like miniaturized characters. Here it's like they're proportional, and you can play as different Jedi masters. Like, of course, you got Qui-Gon Jinn, you got Obi-Wan Kenobi. But for the first time, you can play as Mace Windu.
The
And who's the other
only
one?
game you can play as Mace Windu.
Oh, it's the only game that you can play as Mace Windu. Yeah, I didn't notice that. I didn't know.
I mean, where else can
Uh,
you play Mace Windu?
There was the
yeah,
handheld. So there was a handheld
um,
version of this game on the Game Boy Advance. I just want to add, I did touch on it quickly, and maybe you'll be able to play as him in that game. I haven't played through it, but it's it's one of those things. But the handheld
yeah, I
version
play.
is good.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
I played the Game Boy. It's for the Game Boy Advance, right? I played that one a few days ago. I didn't quite like it because I got accustomed to this 3D version for the PS1, because this is the first one that I played.
This is
And
a better game, to be honest, because that's a watered down port for what the GBA one is, but it's still good for the GBA.
and so like the previous game, Phantom Menace, you start in the Trade Federation. Then this is like a beat 'em up platformer 3D game where you can play as your favorite Jedi Masters. So this one, the players using Obi-Wan. Then I forgot this Jedi's name. Was it Plo Koon or
Well, I think
it's Plo Koon.
I think the Twi'lek one is Ahsoka.
No,
No,
it's
that's not Ahsoka.
Adigalia.
Adigalian, Qui-Gon. What's the other one?
Shocker wasn't in the Star Wars 1.
Adigalia.
She was a Clone
What's the
Wars
other one?
character.
Yeah, I think they were introduced in the movie in episode 2. I don't think they were
There might have been
introduced in
Clone
the
Wars
first
characters.
game. Yeah.
There might be in the Clone Wars TV series they had. Like, I know Ashoka was, but she's not going to be in this game. But yeah.
So this game is
Plo
hard. Plo Koon.
Plo Koon.
Plo Koon.
Plo Koon.
Plo Koon.
Plo Koon. Yeah, there you go.
And there are also other Jedi Masters that you can play as, but you need to finish a specific character to be able to unlock them. You can play as Darth Maul as well, like a hidden character. So there you go. You can see the you know how cool the lightsaber battles in the first episode. So you can do that in this game. They have different kinds of attacks. They have special attacks. You can also use those thermal detonators, those like grenades, and they have their own special abilities. But my only complaint in this game it's that it's so hard, and the controls are quite it's junky. It's not really that responsive, but when you play along, um when you go along with the game, it becomes easier and you can familiarize yourself with the controls. But generally it's a really hard game because of that platforming. You can Funny thing is that when you try to jump from a very high platform, when you fall, you instantly die, even if you're in full health, which I think is quite ironic because you know how Jedi's can jump really high and they just land unscathed. And in this game, it's the opposite. When you, as much as, even if you don't jump, you just like fall down from a ledge, you instantly die and you start where you got there's an icon that you can use like a checkpoint, and it's not that frequent that you can see those checkpoints. I think you can only get those in the middle of the level. And it's also quite hard even if you're on the easy, you're playing in the easy mode, maybe because of the platforming and the controls. But when you get to familiarize with the controls, the you get used to the analog controls, you can breeze through the entire levels and unlock those secret characters. And look how cool those lightsaber battles look like. It gives you freedom on how to use your lightsaber because you have four different attack bot. No, just three, and you can deflect the those blaster shots with your lightsaber. You also have cool power ups when you can extend your lightsaber, just like a typical platform beat 'em up game. You can have these power ups. So it's a platformer and a beat 'em up game, like Fighting Force, and you have this level that you can ride the speeder and shoot your enemies. So that's it for this game. You could. This is a much more improved game, and its emphasis with the lightsaber battles. That's why it's called the Jedi power battles.
Mm.
Unlike from the previous game, you have those Bioware like dialogues where you can use the Jedi mind trick or your charisma or something like that. That's more story driven. This one is if you like mindless fighting, you want to destroy all those droids, you can with this game.
I mean, let's be honest. Star Wars has never really been extremely deep. I mean, there are certain parts to it that are lore wise that are
Mm.
very in depth, but when you get down to it, Star Wars is all about the action. Like, you really want to get into the stuff, lightsaber battles, blasting, trench runs, general action sequences, and that is really what defines the experience of Star Wars in the movie anyway. The lulls in between are generally ways are like breathing points until you get to the next big battle. And the way that you presented this one, JDM, definitely this one is something that I'll put into my queue. that I would probably put into it and give it a shot sometime in
Yeah.
the near future. Mhm.
If you're into 3D platforming and lightsaber battles, yeah, you must definitely play this game. And I've tried the other games, especially with the handhelds.
Mhm.
I forgot which game
Masters of Terra's
is it for the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of
Right?
that game. It's yeah, it's called Terras Kasai, right?
SI
From
Cassie. I don't I did never even bothered. Like, I saw the
they
gameplay and I said, screw this. I'm not never
in the manual they have these terminologies when you look at um there's this music that they're playing in the canteen. It's called jazz, but with I.
Oh yeah.
It
I see.
doesn't. I don't want to say it because
Jazzy?
Mhm.
Jazz?
it's
Dun, 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 dun,
AIZZ.
uh,
dun, dun,
it's,
dun,
it's JIZZ. So
Jeez.
Yeah.
yeah, since
There you
we're a
go. Get
family
it.
show, no, I don't think we might get flag or something. So
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I'd say good choices, JDM. PS1, despite its age, despite its clunkiness, it's still an amazing system. I love it to death. And the two games that you presented, I definitely will give it a shot. The second one, more than anything else, the Jedi Power Battles, I'd probably give that a run through. All right, excellent. Anybody want to toss their opinions in on what they've seen so far?
Miss I.
Well, for me, I would say I love Sir JDM's picks because I know he loves the PlayStation 1. And as Sir Viraj said, it's mostly those who grew up with the PlayStation 1 or who would appreciate these games because, as you can see, the blocky graphics, it's only those who grew up in that era who would appreciate it. So I think I could give the Jedi Power Battles a go because, as Sir JDM said, it's a beat 'em up, and that's my favorite type of genre, one of my favorites, and it has better graphics than the first game he chose. So I
Yeah.
think that second one is something I could enjoy.
Cool.
Right. I have a question to Sir JDM. Do I look pretty?
For fuck's sake.
Of course, mom, your mom, mother. What else should
All
I
right.
say? You
In
might
regarding with
spank
Sir
me
JDM's
later.
games, so especially with Phantom Menace, you mentioned it's tank controls. Ain't no business
Kinda.
being yeah, ain't no business being a tank controls, all right? With all of the camera movement going around it, all of the jumping, all of the rolling around, why would you even do that? Like
Yeah.
if they're trying to dick ride Resident Evil, if they're trying to dick ride Dino Crisis, there's no reason for them to do that. Okay? You got the analog sticks. That should have been fine. Uh,
Yeah, I
anyway,
think they were just trying to figure out the analog controls yet because in
what year did this come out?
2000. So
Oh,
So the analog sticks have been around for 2
they
years
have
by
the
then, isn't it? Because the
yeah
PS1
they
analog stick was
Yeah,
created
but
in
then again, you don't
1998.
want to leave out the guys who don't have analog stick controls. PS1
Yeah,
started
I know.
off without.
Yeah,
yeah.
they,
So
it's like the same.
what, did they started developing this game back in 1994?
it's not like Crash Bandicoot. It has the 8-way control, right? You can go diagonal. This one, if you want to go diagonal, you just face that direction, then you just press left or right, then you go
Right.
forward. Just like Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Dino Crisis. The-
Yeah,
so
but
it's
so
not your
for both games, Phantom Menace and Power Battles. If you like the PS1 games, if you like platforming, if you like adventure games, and you're quick to anger, play the PS1 games. Play the PS1 Star Wars game. All
yes.
right,
And if you love tank controls, yes.
and tank controls galore. Alrighty. Ha, well, it's 2 hours. We're in the 2 hour mark now. Let's go with Miss I. If no one else is willing to add more to Sir JDMs, let's go with Miss
Yes,
I. Miss I.
yes, Miss Eileen. Let's hear your choices of Star Wars games, and we'll make allowances for the fact that they might be relatively recent compared to mine, but I'll still give it a go. Let's hear what Miss Eileen has to say.
So my Star Wars game of choice is actually just one game. It's Star Wars: The Force Unleashed Sith Edition. And first of all, I want to thank Jose Estrada there on the chats. He's the one who gifted me this game. Jose Estrada, thank you. Dark Gatipit, he gave me this game.
Is it
And
is
I
it
thought,
really a thank you?
yes, it's a thank you.
Is
Because
it
it's a
really?
free.
Right.
Although I will rant about this game, but I'm thankful for the game. This is
Right.
actually not expensive, but relatively not cheap either, unless it's on sale. So the Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, compared to the games presented already, is quite a modern version, and in this at the same time a retro.
Well,
Retro
what's the
because this was
PS3, PS2?
both actually. This was on the PlayStation 2 and the PS3. It's
Xbox
also on the
360.
DS,
It is on the
Xbox,
DS. That's correct. Yeah, it's on the DS.
Engage.
Really?
It was on Engage, the Wii, and even the iOS. There's also Windows and Mac OS. So, disclaimer first, I've only seen episodes 4 to 6 of Star Wars back in the 90s when I was a kid on our VHS tapes. And that was the last time I've seen them. So, I cannot remember much about the lore. And I've never seen episodes 1 to 3. So, I'm unfamiliar with most of the terminologies and the backgrounds of the characters. So I'm coming through this, or coming from an objective perspective, I would say. So this game was initially scheduled for release on November 2007, but was moved on September 2008. As I said earlier, it was released on different platforms. And for those who would like to try this game, there is an enhanced Wii version released on the Switch just last April 2022. So this game is an action adventure, although StarWars.com claims it's the first open world Star Wars game. I would say it's more linear than open world. It also boasts something about Pixelux Entertainment's digital molecular matter technology for the dynamically destructible objects, because there's a lot of interaction you could do in this game with the environment. And there's also natural emotions euphoria for the realistic non-player character artificial intelligence. So the game is basically you play as Darth Vader's secret Sith apprentice Star Killer, whom he sends to eliminate several Jedi survivors. The story follows between Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and A New Hope. So I'm actually interested in seeing the movies again, the 4 to 6 and 1 to 3, to maybe see where this game links Episode 3 and 4. So you start playing as Darth Vader, as we've seen earlier in the intro, where you thrash about Wookiees and Jawas while chokeholding them, and the game proceeds to you playing and the main character Star Killer. The good things I could say about this game is it is easy to follow with a tutorial at the beginning, and it's easily accessible anytime. You can, well, like the title says, you can use the Force, which is a plus for fans of the series. You can grip enemies, not just objects, including TIE fighters later on in the game. It's actually funny when you grip stormtroopers because they helplessly flail on air, or if they're on the ground, they will really hold on the ground. Or if there are two stormtroopers near each other, they would hold each other while trying to escape the grip, but they really can't. You can also manipulate objects, as I said. You can throw at enemies or solve puzzles. Just like other hack and slash games, you can drain the health of enemies when you defeat them. You can level up with different skill trees, combo the force, and passive statistics. I would say the graphics is good for its time. The story is really quite good. The block, you can see the earlier, the block deflects mostly from all angles without having to face the direction where the attack came from. And I think you can save anywhere in the game. There isn't a particular save point, and it's not seen here, but there you can change your outfit or the character skin as well to other iconic Star Wars characters. Even the lightsabers, you can change it to others. Some are easily available. Some need to be unlocked. Well, now the bad things for me as a player is the grip is not really accurate. If you've seen there earlier, there are like blue target locks on the objects. So even if it locks, inverted commas, locks the object, sometimes it would grab the other objects beside it or the one even farther away from it, which is annoying. There isn't really any proper locking targets, so that is really quite annoying. The repetitive level designs is also quite boring. There are limited skill trees because if you check the I forgot the name of the menu, but the skill tree, it's like there's only 5 items in each. So there's not, and you can only like upgrade one or two at the beginning. So you can't really see the other skills and combos you could do, which is reasonable, but it felt really limited. I also wish you could block. I'm sorry, you could move while blocking because if you see there are stormtroopers attacking from far away, and you cannot approach them or come at them because they're shooting at you, and you just need to block. It's inevitable that you have to dash to them and get damaged or injured. I guess the workaround there is the dash. That's all. Other stuff, I wouldn't say it's good or bad. I think it depends on the preference of the player. There are quick time events here. So for most platforms, it's buttons and the gamepad. But for the Wii and the Switch version, they use motion control. So for me, I like quick time events, but I understand many players hate it. So it depends on you if you like it or not. Is it canon? It's one of the questions around the internet. Is the story of the game canon? Well, this game was published and developed by LucasArts before it was
Acquired
before
by
that-
Disney.
yes, before acquired by Disney. It was created with the direct input of George Lucas himself. This is what they call the G canon because George Lucas was involved. But when the game, not the game, Star Wars was acquired by Disney. Star Wars games and characters before that have been made non-canon. Impressions. Sorry, this is a rant. I have a long list
Go ahead.
in my
No, that's the whole point of the show.
Yes.
because I usually choose my favorite games, and I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I have no library of favorites to choose from.
Hmm.
Impression is, first of all, it doesn't hold my attention as a beat 'em up and hack slash fan. It got boring so fast that I had to pause the game sometimes, go browsing on the internet or social media. I'm sorry. It depends on you, on the player. This is just me. um, it might be fun for fans of the franchise because there are only apparently a few good action Star Wars games. Apparently, that's what I've read online. The skill tree, as I said, feels very limited considering it came out in the year 2008 when compared to other similar games released even earlier, years earlier. Well, I'm coming from someone who has played Onimusha, God of War, Devil May Cry, so you can see how this game is limited for me. Um, I would say even the Lego Star Wars earlier on the GBA feels better when it comes to battle. For me, I'm just speaking for myself. I hope there would be more unlockable games here than what I saw on the school tree. Maybe secret unlockables, because just by looking at it, I'm like, meh, it's just that there's nothing more to offer. The game has nothing more to offer. And upon reading a few reviews, it seems like this game is more a treat for Star Wars fans because, well, they can enjoy wielding the Force. And I would say maybe it's good to buy on when it's sale. It's actually currently on sale. I checked earlier.
Yeah,
Uh,
a lot of Star Wars games are on sale today. So if you guys are
Mm.
interested, check out your local digital stores. There's a ton of Star Wars on sale right now. But yes,
Yeah.
continue, Miss Eileen.
I think it's 9.99 on GOG, and well, in terms of pesos, I'm not sure in the other regions. It's 150 plus pesos only.
Mhm.
I think I will give the game a try, even though I have lots of rants on this. Even though I'm not really enjoying the game because the story is quite intriguing. I accidentally spot myself on YouTube. It's just on a trailer. I didn't. There was no context, but there were some spoilers there. So I'm looking forward to coming to that point of the story. And I didn't see it, but some people say there's something in the ending. I'm glad I did not look it up, but they say it's heartbreaking, so I'm not really sure what it is. It's intriguing, so I think I will give it a try more and endure the game despite it boring me.
No, it's a very relevant opinion, Miss Eileen, because of the fact that you admitted that you don't have all that much of a background on Star Wars itself. So your lore dive isn't as deep. And in gameplay, it's always going to come down to how much fun a game is. And if the game at its core is not as fun, design wise, compared to somebody who might be looking at it from the point of view of like me and JDM, who are diving into it because of the fact that we want to see all the references, we want to see how it all ties together and everything, to the movies, to the expanded universe and everything. I can imagine you as somebody who's not as deep into the lore, finding this not to your liking, or lacking a little bit in terms of what you can find with the content. So yeah, it's a very relevant opinion.
I
Yeah.
just
So
wish that even though for Star Wars fans it would be appealing just from the gameplay itself, but it felt lacking, unfortunately.
all right, and it's definitely a very valid opinion. Anybody else want to throw in?
This looks like a game that you have crossed with Devil May Cry and what's that other game?
Garo.
God of War, but
Hmm.
in Star Wars form. Because you
Yes.
have this sword fight, you have this overwhelming numbers of enemies, right? Then you have this. You also have this. Those are ATST, right?
ST.
Those, eh, yeah, the ATST. So not just the. But was it this supposed to be the rebel base, right?
Rebel
The
base, yes.
enemies are the enemies are supposed to be the rebels, right? Why do they have this? Well, anyway, so this
It's
really
a cheap
looks like,
knockoff.
yeah.
It's made from Taiwan.
Uh, rebel technology. So this really looks like a God of War Devil May Cry game. And what Miss Eileen mentioned earlier, that it has quick time events, right? It's really like a God of War game,
I
but
mean,
in
around
Star
that
Wars form.
around that era, God of War was huge.
Yeah.
God of
Yes.
War, yeah, was really the franchise to beat.
I would say it still is
Yeah.
big.
Sorry, say again, Viraj.
I would say God of War still is big because it's a game that was great when it came out and it's reinvented itself and it's still great now.
Hmm.
Oh, but yeah, in terms of like the platforming action genre,
Yeah.
like
So,
in that arena, this
Devil
was
May Cry, God of War is basically the same game. Let's be honest, with different wallpaper,
mm,
and
yeah.
this is like the same world. So you know, yeah, sure, great, looks like fun.
All right. Well, that's Rogers 2 cents. Oh, 2 pence on it, and and JDM. I'm afraid to ask, but yeah, Joe, what's your take on this?
I have a question to Miss I.
Oh no, here it comes.
Do I look pretty, Miss I?
Okay.
Pretty funny.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Miss I.
Okay, so in regarding with Force Unleashed, so I did play the Force Unleashed with the Star Wars Heritage Pack that came out for the Switch, and she is not wrong.
Mhm.
This is boring as fuck. All right.
I'm not alone.
The only reason why you should play this game, okay, and it's kind of dubious for the developers actually. They let you play as Darth Vader. Hey, because why not? Who doesn't want to play Darth Vader? Okay.
Oh yeah.
So on the first part of the game, the first 50 minutes of the game, it's basically a tutorial how to use your lightsaber, how to use your force powers, and you have Darth Vader as your character avatar there, and you're slicing and dicing motherfucking Wookiees left and right. Okay, and just showing how badass Darth Vader is. And then once that is over, you'll get the discount apprentice that you got here.
It's basically Metal Gear Solid 2, JDM.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, right
Bait and
after
switch.
right after Darth Vader's right after Darth Vader's part, it went down south all of a sudden. Tell me if I'm wrong, Miss I. After you, it's fun being Darth Vader, but after that, nah.
Yeah, it really fell downhill from there. Boring as F.
So in terms of presentation, okay, sure, but with our guy here, I can't remember. Who's this guy? Who's the apprentice guy?
Or killer.
Star Killer.
Galen.
Galen Malik.
Killer.
Mark, go ahead.
Garen Malik.
So he moves well. Okay, I mean, he's quite really well skilled with the lightsaber. However, using his force powers, you can most of the time you can only like pull one object at a time. It's not you know what I mean, Miss I. Like you can only manipulate one object at a time. It's not like you can. Well, of course he's an apprentice, Joe. Stop nitpicking stop ball busting. Okay, he's an apprentice, all right. Okay, sure, but still. The way I look at it, yeah, you guys are right. It's a mix of Devil May Cry, God of War. I might add Prince of Persia in there,
Yes.
kind of. All right. With the so quick time events, you really need to pay attention which button you should press. Okay, depending on which system you're going to play this. All right. In terms of level designs, it's very intricate to say the least. It really feels like you're inside a Star Wars architecture that you can only find in the movies, and that's the thing. There are two groups of people in the Star Wars community: the Star Wars fans who like to move out of the Skywalker neighborhood, you know what I mean, and those people who like Star Wars who wants to be in that kind of be on that localized the same old characters, if you know what I mean. Because to these people, it's not Star Wars unless I see Luke, unless I see Leia, I see Han Solo, Chewbacca, R2D2, C3PO, Darth Vader, all those stuff. If I see these characters, it's Star Wars. But then again, on the other side, Star Wars is something more than those characters. So you want to make so it's Star Wars. It's a galaxy. There are other characters supposed to be in there. There are other stories that's supposed to be told out there. Why are we relegating ourselves to these people right here for 9 movies straight? Well, no, I mean, but I digress. So, to me, this is one of those Star Wars that they're trying to one of those games, the Star Wars franchise, that they really want to tell another different story aside from the usual canon movies, but they have to add in Darth Vader in here. Just so you can appease the Star Wars purist fans. Oh, see, we still got Darth Vader in here. Yada yada yada, waka waka. But so who is this game for? So well, you got your lightsaber, you got the laser beams, you got the droids, you got the lights, you got the sounds. What more do you want? It's a typical Star Wars game, but why does it feel still so boring? I don't know why. I mean, once you got a hold of everything that you're supposed to do, it gets old real fast. Tell me if I'm wrong, Miss I.
You're absolutely spot on, Sergio.
All right. Well, that's all from me. So much hate. Yes. Let the hate flow through you.
Yes, let the hate flow through you. You
Do it. All right.
By the way, Sergio has a point with this game because it doesn't use all the familiar characters. So that's why I thought this game would at least be not really an entry point, but something non-fans could appreciate. But yeah, I can appreciate the story. Like I said earlier, it's intriguing, but it really fell short. Really, really short.
All right. So, Joe, it's a question of whether you want to put in your choices first, or should we have
we will go with Sir Dan Solo and his
Dan
presentation of his Star Wars games.
All right.
So before we end the show, well, it's almost we're gone for 3 hours here. Your typical Star Wars movie, movie length. So let's go with Sir Dan and his Star Wars game.
All right. Sounds good.
Yes, let's go to the Millennium Falcon.
Hello, Timeless Gamers. Hope you're all well and enjoying this Star Wars special. We'll talk about my main pick of Star Wars game, and that's going to be Knights of the Old Republic, also known as KOTOR. It's a game that Sir Joe's experienced, but is only at the very start of that, so I thought it best to give you a broader perspective on the game. It was released in 2003 on PC. It's essentially a CRPG, but it's one of the first or early 3D CRPGs. There were other 3D CRPGs before it, like Neverwinter Nights and such like, but it's still in that infancy 3D CRPG phase. It's essentially a separate, an entirely separate entity of a story compared to the Skywalker story. It takes place 4,000 years before all the Skywalker stuff does with Luke and Han and all that. So it's very detached from all that. But despite that, pretty much the universe is entirely the same. So that is a little bit quirky. The technology is pretty much all the same. With that said, one thing that KOTOR does, which I find is actually pretty amazing and a real strong point of the game, is that it takes Star Wars' lore and universe and all the fashion essentially that comes with that, and it puts its own spin on that. But that spin still feels very much in that universe to me. I think that's fantastic, because I look at the Phantom Menace and the prequels that George Lucas did, and some of that stuff don't sit that well with me. With when you put it into context of the original trilogy, some of that prequel stuff feels more futuristic than when we get New Hope and the later stuff. Later in the timeline, not our timeline. gets confusing, don't it? But this in KOTOR, like I look at some of the enemy design, some of the spaceships design, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's like a really nearly perfect evolution of what we got in the original Star Wars. Taking that, respecting it, and changing it into something else that feels very much part of it. I like that. I think it's really, really good. But apart from that, the game itself's brilliant. Okay, it is fantastic. Now, I think Sir Joe might not. You don't like his CRPGs. You don't like things where you've got to kind of like actually work at getting somewhere, and you do have to work a bit, not loads, but it's a CRPG. So your character build's very important. Your squad's very important. You can't just just experiment and hit and open stuff. You have to think things through and plan things out before you really get into it. It's a pretty easy game anyway, but it can if you don't plan these things out, you can find yourself just basically not hitting people with your weapons and struggling a little bit to get through it. But it's just a fantastic game. It really is. I think what makes it, the two things that make it for me are the powers and the moves and that you get to experiment with. When you're in early game, you don't get that much. Typical CRPG, low level Dungeons and Dragons style role playing. You don't really, you don't have much to do. Once you get to that like mid-level, probably a third of the way into the game, it opens up a lot more. And not only do you get more powers and that, obviously you can explore more worlds. There's more open world elements, so you can actually go exploring. So it's got a lot of actual gameplay fun to it, and it does all that, nailing that Star Wars aesthetic, sounds of the lightsabers, blasters, all that stuff, fantastic. But then what actually really makes the game is its story. A lot of CRPGs are more about the exploration and the character builds and all that type of stuff, and they have good stories as well. There's some great stories in CRPGs, but they tend to take a bit of a backseat to it's more about you and your team and the adventure rather than it is a story. Whereas this has got a superb story with one of the most, if not the most, biggest shock moments in any RPG I've ever played. I think it's I think it is pretty genius, really. I as a kid, I certainly didn't see it coming, and its reveal was pretty mind blowing. And it does that a couple of times, but not. There's one or two times when it's lesser, but there is that one particular moment that if you have played this game, you will know that if you play this game without knowing the plot and story or anything about it, it knocks your head off basically. So I highly recommend Knights of the Old Republic. I think it's brilliant. I think like all these CRPGs, you've got to be a little bit patient to get with it. I do think the combat's not, it's more gimmicky. It's nowhere near as tactical as some old CRPGs are. It's not. You don't have to think your strategies out to the nth degree for it. It's pretty straightforward. Once you've got some powers kicking ass, it's pretty straightforward. But generally speaking, it's brilliant, and it's spawned a sequel. It's a bit of a divisive sequel. A lot of people love it because its sequel is a lot more deep. It's an Obsidian game, and it's a hell of a lot deeper when it comes to its writing, its characters, and its hidden philosophies. Well, hidden philosophies. It's backroom philosophies. Sorry, but it is also a much slower and somewhat bloated game. I definitely prefer the original. I think the original is just more. It feels more like a Star Wars game, and it's better paced, basically. it's not as clever as the sequel. The sequel's a lot more of a real a real RPG when it comes to the thought behind everything that's gone into it. But it's a bit boring. So it's worth playing. But I'd definitely say play these in order and check out the first one. So yeah, that's my choice. I will throw in an honourable mention to the Master System Star Wars game. The main reason for this really is that it's the same or very, very similar game to the Nintendo Entertainment System Star Wars game, but it's better. It just plays better. There's quite a lot of skank in the Nintendo version. There's a lot of cheap deaths and a lot of just you can tell they've not polished. Well, they've either not polished the gameplay up or they wanted it to be cheap on purpose. Who knows? But the Master System loses all those negatives. Well, not all the negatives, most of the negatives, and it's a lot more fun to play. It's a lot better. So they're my choices. May the 4th be with you, and keep your gaming timeless.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Dan Solo.
Yeah,
And
excellent choice from Dan.
that's his games. Knights of the Old Republic and the Star Wars for the Sega Master System. Any thoughts on his games, ladies and gentlemen? I think Sir JDM played KOTOR.
Yes. Typical BioWare game.
Do you agree with do you agree with Solo? Dan Solo.
Yeah, of course. I'm a fan of CRPG games. I played. It's in the same vein with Neverwinter Nights, where you can create this character that you play as. You can use points to increase your abilities like strength, dexterity, intelligence, and all of those stuff. And you can also use skills, use equipments, enhancements like those Geiger counters or that they're using in the game you seen earlier. You can use the force. You can also choose a class from a soldier, then a scoundrel like Han Solo, and a scout who's good into using machines, computers. And then eventually you'll become a Jedi and select other branches of the Jedi, like the Sentinel, Jedi Counselor. I forgot the other subclasses of the Jedi Order, and it plays somehow like the Phantom Menace game for the PS1, where you have this dialogue. It's like Baldur's Gate, sort of, where you can use you can use the dialogue to do a Jedi mind trick, or just use your intimidation skill to get most out of your conversation with the character. Maybe use intimidation skill to get more information or get an extra item, something like that. So it's really in essence a good CRPG game if you're a fan of
This
Baldur's
is not a
Gate.
good
and
CRPG. This is good CRPG. This is bullshit.
Well, that's the thing about it. He doesn't think it's a good CRPG because of the fact that he doesn't have the background that we do in terms
Yeah.
of like Western RPGs, like Baldur's Gate, Planescape Torment, Jade Empire, things like that. So in Joe's case, he's approaching this from the point of view of somebody from
Yeah.
the JRPG genre.
And I really would like to see that alternate timeline that instead of JRPG is going to be CRPG, Joe CRPG, who
Yeah,
loves playing these games, this
I
Western
agree.
RPG game. Right?
That the alternate timeline where Joe got into CRPGs instead
Yeah.
of
But his
RPGs, and he's
idea of
bagging on stuff
No,
like Final
that's what I said. Because I said on my because I said one on my preliminary run when I played KOTOR, and I played KOTOR on the Switch version, right?
Uh,
And I said, okay, this is a game that Sir Dan, Miss I, Sir Joel, and Sir JDM will enjoy because you guys are the computer geeks, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Computer geeks.
like
You're the computer junkies of the crew, and I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to rant about KOTOR, okay, because Sir Dan pretty much threw me under the bus right there. In terms of presentation, it's pretty much everything that Star Wars is supposed to be. You got the lights, you got the sounds, you got the architecture, and you got the aliens.
Mm.
Like, if there's one thing about Star Wars, it's a diversity of the characters that you're supposed to you're supposed to expect. It's not everyone's supposed to be humanoids. Okay, so there are the aliens there, the different alien races. I mean, one thing that I'm maybe I'm expecting a little bit more variety. I think there's only like four major races in there, uh, and mostly they're all NPCs anyway. Um, in regarding with the story, yeah, I can agree with the storyline, and I would say one of my nitpicks about the game would be the gameplay, um, because when I played it, it's like it feels like it's supposed to be played on a computer, like with a mouse, rather than an actual D-pad. If that makes sense, it doesn't feel it doesn't feel fluid if you're whether if I'm playing it on the original Xbox or whether I'm playing it with the Switch, it just feels doesn't play right. If you know what I mean. I mean, when you're actually fighting, when you're actually fighting, when you're actually exploring, it feels off. I mean, that's my first impression. Okay, and then when I got into it, okay, um, it takes a little while of adjusting where you should be hitting. Sometimes your characters will wander off because the crosshair is being pointed somewhere else. Sometimes the enemy is right there, but because your crosshair is pointing somewhere else, your character is doing something else. They're not attacking. They're not supposed to be attacking the enemy right in front of you, really, because it follows where the crosshair is.
That sounds
Um,
about because a lot of PC to console ports. I mean, let's be honest. Like the PC is seen as the elite platform for these games that these games were made around, and this is nothing new. The Command and Conquer games I love. They have console ports, and you need a mouse to play that game to select your characters, your troops to command them, and you want to be approximate. You need that mouse to have it. Games like point and click adventures, like Discworld, for example, playing that on Sega Sat, and you can do
Broken
it.
Sword, Broken Sword on the Game Boy Advance.
yeah, and I'm not, and
I'm not
and I read a lot of articles saying that KOTOR is one of the best Star Wars games, and I believe you guys. It's just that if I play this on an actual computer, like like when it first came out in the 2000s,
Yeah.
maybe I would have enjoyed it more. If I'm actually playing it on a computer, and I'm like, oh, well, how about mate? You just play it on the computer, mate. Why not just do it, mate?
Yeah.
How about just download from GOG and just play it, mate?
I mean,
I'm like-
I'm of the opinion that games that were designed for PC is the way you want to play them on PC. I have played consoleized ports of games that were on PC onto console platforms. They just about passed, but you know that it will play better on the PC. This is just an old.
Yeah.
This is a
I mean,
story.
I'm not gonna play it on the computer if I already got the console port anyway. And I'm like, okay, I'm telling my experience on a console port perspective. Like, how does it compare? And to all of you PC players who already played Knights of the Old Republic back in the mid 2000s, you guys you guys will not gonna believe what I'm gonna say anyway. Regarding with the skill system here, I'm no slouch in regarding with the skill system. I'm a JRPG player. Okay, I know the skill system works. It's just that it's just that the grind here is very very tedious. Not so much. I mean, uh, you can get some experience points not just fighting. You can get experience points by doing simple tasks like I mean there are a lot of side quests here, and I'm like so I had to use a walkthrough just so that I can maximize my experience points because I'm trying to I'm trying to play it legit. I'm trying to give it the benefit of doubt. Okay, I'm enjoying this. 20 minutes of the game. I'm not enjoying this. Fuck this game. And the only time that things get really interesting is when you get the actual Jedi character, and even then, that bitch. Okay, first of all, all right, and I've been complaining to you guys on our group chat.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
That's
so
cool.
so let me get this straight. This badass Jedi that I keep on hearing the first 10-15 minutes of the game defeated a Sith Lord, got captured by a group of random bandits, and then you have to save her. And then by the time you did, what an ungrateful. Okay, and I'm like, dude. I mean, shit. Anyway, I'd say she's. I mean, she's showing a lot of attitude, very ungrateful. And they said, and Sir JDM and Sir Dan were like, oh,
There's that
if-
strong, independent woman you're looking for. Come on.
and they're like, oh,
Right here. He's got a response.
oh, and they're like, Sir Joe is an ass man. Okay, so he's gonna like looking at asses, and I use that character. I'm like, girl, I would rather look at Chewbacca's hairy Wookiee ass all the time rather than looking at you. Okay. I mean, if there's one thing she's good at, it's just using her Jedi powers. And even if I got really get if I keep on using her, I mean, what are the Jedi powers that I can make use her for? Like it's just a simple push, pull. Not really. Well, she's on the light side of the Force. So, and you know what? And I'm like, okay, I'm really starting to get annoyed with things. So I had to cheat. Okay, so, okay. Let's see if I can make this if I can make this game more interesting if I cheat. Okay, so I use a cheat code to max out the level, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's like level 20. That's the level cap. Like level 20. The fuck level 20? And when you level up, so when you level up, you don't get points for skills and abilities as well. Sometimes when you level up, you'll only get 3 points per skills, nothing for abilities. When you level up, sometimes it's just abilities, those skills. So when you level up, it's not instant. It's not even, not both. So there will be a time when you reach a level cap of 20, and then you're only forced to no pun intended. So you're only forced on allocating how many skills for strength, how many skills for defense, yada yada, and then on your skill tree, on your abilities tree. So if you're a Jedi, so there are abilities that you can only unlock if you're on the light side, and there's the abilities that you can use if you're on the dark side. And I'm like, I want to choke some motherfucker right here. So so she's on the light side, and I maxed out all of the Sith powers that I can get, like force lightning, force choke, everything, because I really want to make, because it's really really boring. It's just such a boring gameplay here. So I really want to make sure that I'm OP, just to make things more interesting for me. And so I'm guessing for a well balanced party, there should be one melee, one mid range, and one who is doing the shooting. Okay. So for the first, so I only stayed for the first planet. I'm like, once I get this bitch Jedi, I'm off. I'm gonna play something else. And yeah, once I maxed out all of the once I maxed out their levels, nothing could touch me. I just used I just used the Jedi girl all the time, force lightning everything, force choking everyone, and even with a max level on a level 20 cap, she can't even kill anyone. I mean, if I force choke someone, it's like there's like what like a one like a quarter left in their HP, and I'm like, seriously, girl. After all of that, that's all you can do anyway. Sir Dan is
Because it's using the Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition. So
Rule set,
the
yeah.
damage are based on the die that you roll.
oh
Unlike
another thing, the dialogue. Why are they talking so far to each other? It's like I'm talking right here. I'm talking right here. What? I'm like they're like, and I said, okay, are they is COVID a thing in this
Yeah, they
galaxy?
were
Why
practicing social
are you waiting
distancing
for a
from
party?
4,000 years ago.
There's COVID 4,000 years ago. I'm like, why are they standing so far apart? And I'm like, uh, are they shouting at each other? No. I mean, to all of you guys who haven't played KOTOR, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sir JDM knows what I'm talking about. Dan Solo is transforming now into Darth Faulkner. I can tell. Your lack of faith in this game is pretty disturbing.
I wonder if he's trying to force choke you virtually right now.
Sir Dan, you're not choking my neck. I can feel you're choking me, but not my neck.
No, just no.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I just want to go through some of the Sega games before we finish.
Oh yeah.
That were on the Sega platforms. Obviously, Nintendo had the lion's share of Star Wars for the era, but that's not to say that Sega didn't have any at all. It actually had some. Some is a nice word. So obviously, as we can see here, this is one Sir Dan mentioned, and we saw a quick video of that. It had a late release in '93. This is the enhanced version of the NES game on the Master System. Only had a PAL release, didn't even come out in America because you buggers stopped supporting the Master System in 1990. So we got it and you didn't. Ha ha. But give it a go. There's other ways you can play it. So there you have it. So
Yeah, like you said, this sucked. Just.
So there we go. So I'm not going to go into that game. So there are other games that came out. Sadly, there was no. Which it seems like a crime. There was no Star Wars game on the Mega Drive. But I do believe, and I do have the ROM, I haven't actually played it yet, there was a prototype ROM of Super Star Wars that was on Super Nintendo for the Mega Drive. So I wonder how that played, but that never happened. So it's pointless to mention that. On the Game Gear, now this was interesting, there was actually a Star Wars game on the Game Gear. And, I mentioned there were Game Boy sort of scaled-down ports of the Super Star Wars games. There was Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi on Game Gear, okay? And if you're going to play a handheld Super Star Wars game, this is the one you want to play, because it just is a good game. Here we go. Return of the Jedi. It's right here in the corner. Boom boom. 1995, a late release for the Game Gear. But I'm just going to quickly just play through it very quickly, and you'll see the graphics of it, and you can sort of see.
I really should dive into the Game Gear library. It seems pretty varied.
It's actually a good library. It's got more games on the Game Gear than there was on the Master System. And a lot of the games were developed for Game Gear, were
It's just
releases. But
when I first tried the Game Gear way back in the day, it just ate through batteries like crazy. So
it does. It still does. I mean, there are people who do ports for it. There are people here who do ports for it now. Enhanced not ports. They do mods for the Game Gear, and you can actually have an enhanced battery life, a better LCD screen on there. it just
Oh
makes
yeah,
the game.
that was another problem with it. The screen was really dark, actually, despite the colors.
It's backlit. Yeah, it's backlit. So there you go. But you can
Saying my last name anyway.
So you can again, look, you can pick the character you want. You can't, you can do it on the. So as you can see, you've got some color here. You've got some color in the media port, and it plays quite well. It's quite responsive. If you can play an 8-bit port, but there you go. You can see it looks so much better and nicer than the game.
Yeah, it does. It looks pretty cool, actually.
I played that day. I played that a couple of days ago. The one, the Game Gear one.
Yeah, and what happened? You cried.
Ah,
Wasn't for you, no.
no, I'm not really good
Yeah.
playing it. These
Yeah.
platforming games.
Younger
But-
Joel would probably have a blast with it because of,
Yeah.
his younger Joel's reflexes were spot on, but now old Joel is. Nah.
I've seen Force Awakens. I've seen Jedi Power Battles. Why should I go through this
Well, there you go. Yeah.
game?
Which one is this one?
This is the Sega CD Software Toolworks Star Wars chess.
Star Wars chess. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, when you told me about this one, I got intrigued.
Yeah, so I'll show you what it looks like very briefly. It's actually a very well-made game.
You'd think, Miss Eileen, it would be like battle chess for DOS, wouldn't you? You'd
Yes.
think. I'd go for that one.
I remember that game fondly.
There's the characters, and you just play a game of chess. And when you play it, there's a little animation that tells what
Yep.
moves to do where.
Battle chess Star Wars version. I'd play it. I'd play it. Yeah.
And it's got the sound effects and everything. And
Mhm.
you've got a stormtrooper, and then you can go like whatever. You can go in and take the.
Come on, R2, kick his ass. Okay.
I want the animation.
Yes, Miss Eileen and I are thinking the same. We want the animations. We want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have what's going on here. Right? Am I trying to do? What am I trying to do here?
Come on, Viraj. Your ethnicity is Indian. Chess should be in your blood. Come on.
What are you talking about in my blood? This is not even something I enjoy playing, to be honest. Well, it is. But what's going on here? Oh, this is a demo. I haven't even got into the game. What's wrong with me? I thought I was playing the game.
Okay, well, there you go.
Ah,
It's like giving your kid brother a controller that wasn't even plugged.
or a TV remote.
Yeah.
I don't want to dwell too much into that because we'll be here forever. But you got like a little chess game there. You also have
I'd give that a try. That was on the Sega 32X CD. Okay, I'll give that a shot.
And you also have Star Wars Rebel Assault, which came out in '94 too, which is like
A Rebel Assault. Yeah, that's a good one.
like a sort of polygonal, basic sort of shooter game.
Yeah.
But I found that really hard to control. Now, so you have two Star Wars games on Sega CD. Now, the one I want to draw your attention to is the 32X Star Wars game, which is Star Wars Arcade. There we go.
The arcade conversion. Yeah. Mhm. This one was good.
Another 1994 release. It came out pretty much as the 32X was released as a killer app for it, shall we say. This and Doom and Virtua Racing, I think, were like the releases, and Virtua Fighter. It's to sort of show off the hardware's potential. And they're really trying to push for that Model 1 look that this game has. And it does look good. It's polygonal. It pushes it. This is like primitive 32-bit graphics, but it's clean. And it plays really well. You have two modes on it. You have 32X mode, which is the more challenging levels on there. And you have the original arcade game. So you have that. Another great thing about this particular game, which is like a really good thing, is you can play two-player as well. So you can play with a Y-wing and have a gunner, someone with the control with the guns, and someone piloting it. And you can just have someone just doing both with the X-wing. So you have the best of both. You got animation with Admiral Akbar, his voice.
It's a trap.
Yes.
It's his exact voice. So I've got that there, and you have really nice graphics, very responsive controls for 32X. I understand the 32X was actually capped at 30 frames per second. That's just the way the hardware was. I only found this out later, but I didn't even notice when playing this game. Again, it is about just, you can change the perspective if you want. You can have it in third person and whatever. And you can basically it's okay. But basically, you start off shooting you got like a target here, and you have to shoot. You got a timer, then you got to shoot as many of the TIE fighters down as you can, and then you move to the next level. And you get closer and closer to the Death Star, and then you have like attack runs. You can bomb the Death Star and all sorts of things. So this is another sort of challenging game. I'm about 50% through this actually, and you are going to die a lot, but it just keeps you coming back for more because it's that fun. And the reason I mean this is the one that I'd recommend if you're going to play it. One on the Sega platform. This is the best sort of Sega Star Wars games, and the Master System one's good too. But this is like the best one for this era on a Sega platform. They've got the Sega CD stuff, but forget that unless you want to play chess. This is the one in terms of how it plays, how the X-Wing maneuvers, the sound effects, how immersed you are in the game, because it's an arcade game. You feel like you're in there. You feel like you're really in a Star Wars game. You've got all the sound effects, you've got the talking, you've got Admiral, it's a trap, you've got everything talking. So you have all that. And also you have multiplayer on this. That's something that we haven't touched on. You can play two-player couch co-op with this, with Y-Wing support. You shoot and you guide, kind of like Mario Kart Double Dash, right? You're driving the car and someone's throwing a mushroom, same sort of thing. Obviously, I'm just giving an example, which is crude. But this game is quite well polished, and it's definitely, if you've got a 32X, obviously there's other ways you can play this, but if you've got a 32X, this should be a must-have for your collection. And this is actually a very good Star Wars game, and then I'll give this a solid 8 out of 10, hands down, because it is just that good a game for what it is. Obviously, it's not the longest game in the world. Arcade games aren't. I'm halfway through it, but the game challenges you to do better, and you have to find other ways to destroy TIE fighters and maneuver your craft before the timer runs out. And it's a simple thing, but that's good. Why overcomplicate things? Yeah. Most of the money that went into the game is in the graphics and how it plays. Not in terms of the length of the game, but this is good enough. And you've got a 32X mode, and you've got challenging levels, and you've got the arcade mode as well. So you have more of a game than you think you do. So I just wanted to sort of finish up with saying, well, Sega have actually made a really good game that's sadly not ever had a port. It's locked to this platform. I don't know of it being put on any other sort of compilation. It's locked to it, sadly. And I don't see it ever being reprised again because licensing. Will Sega make a mini console with this on? I doubt it. So again, find a way to play this one because this is a good one. And I just want to put that and end on a nice positive note with that. I'm not going to complain about this one. This is a good game.
It actually looks impressive. The movement is quite fluid. I'm impressed.
It's fluid. In for something that's 30 frames a second, because that's what the 32 ran at, sadly. That was its limitations. But yeah, you really are in this game, and you can play it. You can really get on and play it for ages. And again, I'm throwing a proton torpedo there. You have that as well. You can increase the speed of your X-wing, decrease it, all that, and you will take fire as well. And you've got obviously my name tag sort of hides it, but let me just move this a bit. You can see like in my cockpit, that's how many hits I can take. That's the speed thing. That's my sort of proton torpedo, how many I've got. So that's my heads up displays down here, and obviously the times there. You've got high score as well, so it's fun. This is actually the first Star Wars game I ever played in an arcade machine at the airport, and the fact there's a console version of it is amazing. I think for the time. Obviously, who could afford a 32X? Who wanted to buy one? Only the enthusiast. And now that I can play it via emulation is a good thing, to be honest. So there you go.
All right, let's hear Jaws. Sorry, Princess Leia's choices, and let's hear what whatever's opinions are on them.
Non-binary.
Okay.
Let's listen to their game of choice. Okay. Due to time constraints, I'll be quick about it. I mean, I played a few games just to prepare for the show, but I'll showcase Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 for the GameCube. Right. So since we're talking about flight simulation games, so this is another flight simulation game. Came from the GameCube back on the mid 2000s, and all it does is so you're pretty much Luke Skywalker, riding your aircraft, your spacecraft, trying to get into levels based on the set pieces of the movie. So on your first mission, you're on the Death Star, and regarding with this game is that you have 3 main objectives before to complete the stage. And one of the annoying things about this game is that if you happen to fail on on either of the three objectives, you start back from the very beginning of the stage. Not the very beginning of the game, the very beginning of the stage. And you can only save if, well, the game automatically saves, okay? But if you are successful in the mission. And I'm playing this game on an actual GameCube. I'm not using any save states. So if I fail, like, I go back, and it's really, really annoying. So people say that this is one of the best games out of the GameCube, and I can tell. If if you are telling me that I am doing the trench run on a Death Star, and this is on the and this is on this the GameCube on the mid 2000s, right? Looking at the graphics now on this game, I'm like, oh shit, it's pretty accurate from the movies, as far as I can tell. They really did their research. I mean, they really did some work in here. Um, so let's go with a trench run, so I can tell you guys. So that's the first stage of so that's the first stage. So that is the trench run that you're gunning for, and
It really looks like the movie.
Yes.
right, and
You look
and
very
mind you
good.
guys, I'm not at the first time I played it, I'm not using any guides, and the game doesn't have a tutorial on how to control your plane. What buttons should you push? I mean, what? I mean,
Use the
like,
force.
use the force, Luke. Right? Just wing it.
Instincts.
Ha!
Trust
Just X
instincts,
wing
yeah.
it. So you got a lot of buttons here. You get a lot of buttons on the GameCube controller, and I'm like, and I just downloaded the ROM, so I don't have any manuals here, and I feel like this is one of those games that you really should read the manual so you know what you're going, so you know how to control your game. And I'm like, I spent a lot of minutes trying to find out what am I supposed to do with the exhaust shaft, because according to the movie, you should use your proton torpedoes, aim it to the exhaust shaft, so that the Death Star can blow up. And I'm like, okay, what button should I use? Because if I'm pressing A, then I'm just using the X-wing blasters. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? Turns out I need to press B. Took me 20 minutes just to it took me 20 minutes just to figure that out. Like, I repeated this stage over and over again until I realized, oh, I should press B. So how did I find I should press B? So I had to Google that shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
how to explode Death Star on Rogue Leader
think-
on Rogue Squadron 2 GameCube. I'm like,
Brother,
press
I had
B,
the same
dumbass.
problem with Star Wars on Super Nintendo, because on the last trench run, you got Obi-Wan saying use the Force. I didn't know I had proton torpedo until I looked at someone saying you got to press the L and R button. That's what fires them.
Right?
And it's only when I looked, oh crap, that's when I have to use it. So again, unless you have the instruction manual, you're not going to know all the buttons on these games.
Yeah.
On this particular
And-
game, I played it back in the day, and it's the B wing I used. I didn't use the X wing, and it's a lot of fun. It's hard.
It is a lot of fun as long as you know what you're doing. If you know
Yeah.
what you're doing and you know where to locate your targets are, you're good. And speaking of, you know what your targets are, another thing about this game is that the set pieces here, they're really good. So what I'm showing you right now is the Battle of Hoth.
Hoth.
Right? And in comparison to Sir Joel's game of Empire Strikes Back, looking on that game and looking at this game now, and I'm like, I'm just surprised on how far we have come.
Yeah, you have to appreciate
Technology-wise.
how much progress we've achieved in terms of Star Wars video games from Atari 2600 to this one. This one is really good.
So on this game, one of the objectives here in this game, of course, if you're it's following the movie, you need to anchor the legs. You need to tie up the legs so you can disable the AT-ATs, the AT-ATs, and you can actually do that. It's really difficult. You know why? One of my gripes about this game is that when you're on your aircraft, it's constantly moving forward, and I'm like, dude, of course you're on a plate. Of course it has to continue moving forward, otherwise you'll fall off. What I'm saying here is that in some flight simulations you can like you can just glide, you can just control like you're just cruising. I mean, you're not going too fast. I mean, in this game, like if you are, so for example, if you are dog fighting with TIE fighters, they move pretty fast, and supposedly you can move fast too. But because you're constantly moving forward, it's really hard to maneuver your aircraft, especially if you're controlling it with inverted controls. Who the fuck think of using inverted controls in this game? It's so fucking annoying. It deserves a place in hell. Whoever think of using inverted controls for this game.
What's wrong with inverted controllers? What's wrong with you?
It's bullshit. That's what it is. That's wrong with it.
It's the right way to play it. The fact that you're incompetent and don't know how to fly up is up and up is down and down is up. It's like a stick.
No. It's not
Okay.
it's not incompetent. It's just common sense. Why would you? If you press up, you should go up. If you press down, you should go down.
In Star Wings, listen, I tell you what, the first game that I played was a flight one, which was Star Wings Space Harrier. All these games, down is up and up is down. Like, it's just tradition. The fact that you want to break away from tradition because you're retarded isn't anyone
No, thinking that way is retarded. Who pushes up and you go down, and if you push down, you go up? No, that's retarded.
It's not retarded. Yeah, when you put an aircraft, you pull the throttle stick back, it goes up. You don't press it goes down. That's how it's meant to be.
Oh no! Oh no! Don't be like that. Oh, okay. On this game, if you press left, it goes. If you press left, it goes left. If you press right, it goes right. So pick one, motherfucker. So if you choose inverted controls, then if you push left, if you push left, then it should face right. If you push right, it should go left. But no. So it's only inverted if you go up and down, but it's just normal controls if you go left and right. So that's bullshit.
Yeah, correct.
It's really confusing. That's all.
So this game is inverted only for the
y-axis.
It's inverted up and down, but it's inverted up and down, like my penis, and
you can change the
and it's
control.
normal left and right.
You can change the controls, and I like I said, like I love the multiplayer on this game. Playing with the B-wing, my friend David had this game. We'd fight each other. It was fun. But yeah, it was a release title for the Cube. It was made by Factor 5. So those of you who played Turrican before, the Turrican series, Factor 5 made that. And those of you who played Lair on the PS3, Factor 5 developed that series as well.
No,
and
I never tried Lair, but Turrican, this
Turrican. If you love the Turrican games, Factor 5 Entertainment developed this, and Lucas were happy to go along with this. And so this one is the sequel to the N64 one, which was good. This is so much better than the N64 one, and this is the one to play. Again, I'll definitely say this is the top 20 N64 games. Oh, sorry, GameCube games of all time. This game. Saying that, there's not many great games.
Yeah, for a GameCube game, it's really good. It looks good for a game.
If they were gonna remake a game for the Switch, this would be the series to remake.
Yeah, it has to be done. Yeah. Oh, well.
So there are different kinds of aircrafts here depending on the stage that they're in. I'd say there are some stages, there are some missions and stages here that I don't remember coming from the movies. Like it's just originally made for this game, but that's
you two
fine.
made my cheeks hurt. Okay.
Yeah. You got the A-wing, you got the A-wing, B-wing, X-wing, Y-wing, the Naboo Starfighters, Millennium Falcon. A lot of unlockables actually. There's a passcode here that you can use to unlock them. However, they don't save. Like if you use a passcode, you need and if you reset the game, you need to input those passcodes again and again so you can enjoy those cheat codes. They don't save, unfortunately, which is weird. I've only my patience ran out at mission 4, but hopefully I'll be able to get into it. They really make it look easy if you're watching the YouTube videos, but when you're actually playing it, I mean, I may be sounding so hateful and so resentful, but if you play the games, you'll understand where the hate is coming from.
Now, as coming into it, it is hard because it takes hours of practice for you to get good at it. And you're right, the videos do make it look easy, but yeah, it
The hate flow through you, according to Mr.
definitely.
Neil. And Sir Ray Q says all the hate that you feel with the Star Wars games bring you closer to the dark side.
Well, yeah.
It will
I know,
take you
it
hours to
makes sense.
reorient yourself with the
He doesn't know how to play
control.
Control 6. He wants to do the dark side, which is have it go up, and down, go down. Retarded is the dark side of the Force, and that's where he's going. I find that the most ridiculous thing throughout this whole podcast.
And-
the control is retarded. You're fucking retarded. It makes no sense. Like you're against inverted controllers.
The control is retarded, okay?
Have you
And
not
this is
played
why
Hashtag
we can't have.
controls, inverted controls are retarded. I mean, I mean,
simulators?
if tank controls, okay, tank controls stupid, inverted controls even retarded.
Just rewire your brain. Just rewire it to get used to a down being up and up being down.
No.
Yeah, I don't think Joe has much of a background in terms of flight sim
Yeah.
games.
Yeah,
That's really
get
one
some
thing.
experience in it.
Yeah,
No,
like
that's-
like the Ace Combat series or something. Maybe he hasn't really gone through that yet. So
This is,
okay,
I grew up with Sky Destroyer. Okay, if you press up,
Okay,
you go.
Sky Destroyer
If
would be
you go,
up is
if
up
you
and
press
down
up,
is
you go
down.
down. If you press left, you go left. If you press right, you go right. That's how it's
That's
supposed
true,
to be.
that's
Sky,
right.
the Sky
Listen,
Destroyer way.
Right, that's not inverted. It's the up and the down, and it's because you're pulling the throttle up. You know, because you're pulling it towards you. You're going to push the flat. There is going to go up. If you're going to go down, you're pulling down. You want to get it down. You want to dive. And when you play games like Coming, or there's so many of these flight games where you're playing space shooters and 3D sort of environments, but that's just normal. The fact that you're against, you think this is wrong, is baffling.
Was there no choice, Joe, for this one to invert the y-axis controls?
They
Oh
did the same
yeah.
thing.
So I checked the options, and there's no way to change the.
Well, that's just poor
the
design.
controls.
Then. You should,
It expects the gamer to be
No, it's
professional.
not. So it's not very much user friendly. Okay,
It is user
I mean,
friendly. You're just
it's not user
A real
friendly.
gamer-
It's not noob. It's not noob friendly.
Listen, a real gamer adjusts the control mechanism. Another example I'll give you is like, I'll pull this out for you. This is a Mega Drive controller. Okay, now I know people.
No, that's the hate coming flow. That's the hate flow.
that's true. Yeah, go ahead, Raj.
No hate right there.
Games, and usually I try to rewrite it so C's jump and B's the action button and A's my special attack in some of these Mega
Yeah.
Drive.
Again, that'll work. Yeah.
Sometimes I can't do that. It's annoying, but I don't complain about it because that's the way the game was developed. That's the control mechanism. B's jump, A's C's the attack, and A's the special option, whatever it's going to be. I adjust around the game the way the creator wanted it out of respect to the artist.
Now,
You're not respecting the artist.
Joe's
by continuing to
Joe's
control.
point is that it's not very noob friendly in his case. So that was
It's
his,
not
that was
noob
his
friendly.
Yeah.
All sorts of silliness here. This is the most stupid thing about it. Oh, they're inverted, but it's a bloody game where you're flying an aircraft. What do you expect?
Fine. So that was your choice, Rogue. Rogue Leader. Was that
That's
right?
the hate right there.
You got
Imagine-
you got an analog stick on the cube, like that's like a mini joystick. That's why it's like that. If it was a D-pad, I'd understand. If it's a D-pad, I'd understand, yeah? But you got a stick on the cube controller. Okay? Treat it like it's a
Fine,
flight
fine,
stick. That's what
fine.
you got to do.
No,
Now you got
I
your
think I know
all triggered and everything.
no, I mean,
Imagine
Why are you complaining about the most littlest? That's not the most trivial thing. It's a
But
brilliant game.
if it shows up, then it's supposed to go up. But it's
No. Look
It's
at
not
the
going down,
now
it
with my
goes
cheeks
down.
hurting this badly. Oh man.
It goes up. It goes up. Why? I'm pressing up. Why does it keep going down?
And your thumb is
Maybe it's my controller. I don't know. Maybe it's my controller. I don't know.
Maybe you should just invert the like.
Is that where they put the thumb and where it's positioned is a switch controller. The thumb is perfectly positioned to be on a stick. Okay, it's in the right. This is what I like about the Nintendo controller. They're better than the PlayStation one because the thumb. This should be here. It shouldn't be there. It should be here. And that's one thing I love about the Cube. And that's what makes that game a perfect marriage with that Cube controller. Yeah,
Mhm.
you can easily just trigger it up and down, and you can play 3D games perfectly. It was designed for 3D games. Okay,
My
Yeah.
goodness.
fuck you
You know,
complaining
it would be easier for Sojo to just use the controller like this.
Oh, you
about?
know what? Maybe I should. Maybe I should. You know what? Maybe I'll get more mileage if I just play it like this,
You know something?
Maybe you'll
like a
get used to
simpleton.
it.
You know something? Some people actually do that. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe one or two people do that.
I know
To be fair.
people who
Well,
do
yeah,
this. I know
somebody
people who
actually
do
does
this.
that.
I know people who do that on the Nintendo 64 controller, and I can
Yeah.
forgive because the Nintendo 64 controller is just awkward, yeah. But
Oh my
on the Cube,
goodness.
come on, man, you can play this on.
Fine. We'll take this discussion offline for now. That's
And that's the show, guys.
Really?
For the audience who's
Really?
listening right now, please put in your opinions into the chat. Is inverted controls for flight simulators the norm, or are regular controls up and down? Should that be the norm as well? We look forward to your discussion in the chats, not just during the show, but afterwards. We are curious what your thoughts are. All right, Ja. If you have
All right.
one more game, let's hear it. But if not, then
That's it.
all right. Well, then take it away. I think
That's it.
take it
Okay.
home. Take it home.
Take it back
That's
to
the show,
base.
guys. That's the Star Wars special,
Mhm.
and all the things that you see here, everything's staged. Okay.
No.
Now I don't. Now I don't hate Rogue Leader to just look at the controls.
No, this is
No, I'm
the
just. I'm,
hallmark of a good group of buddies. We can have disagreements, we can have banter, we have tons of fun. That's the whole point of Timeless Gamers Show. All right, Ja.
the Imperial soldier right there going to throw me on the brink again. Okay, so let's just do our shameless plug. So let's start with Miss I. Miss I, what you up to?
I hope to stream more modern games in the near future once I get the chance, because my old laptop broke and I essentially got a much needed upgrade. So I hope to stream more games and hope you can catch me on Twitch. The question is when.
All right. Nice.
All right, thank you for that, Miss I. How about Sir JDM? Where can they find you? What you up to?
Yes, here in the Star Killer base, as you can see. So 1 to 3 Go Retro is the place to go. And I don't stream much recently, but I do still post in my Facebook account some of the exploits that I do when I play games. And by the way, for those Cebu people out there, especially Master Neil of Neil Chills, you might want to check out the Star Wars Cebu event here in Cebu City. It's in Ayala Mall's E Block. I've been there a couple of hours ago. I have a picture of uh, one of the members of the 501st Legion, Scarif Garrison. Um, Actually, I invited someone from the 501st, one of the senior members. However, he called and fortunately he won't be able to come to the show because of the event. He was still in the event when I texted him, but I can show you a picture of us together this afternoon. If we could, uh, let's see if we could show that. That's him.
Very good.
Yes. His name is Mr. Lexus. Let's see. Tablante of the Cebu 501st Scout.
Very cool.
Um,
Very cool.
That's
Yes.
very good attention to
and
detail.
a funny thing earlier, I didn't know he was in the suit, and he came up in the stage. Then because of some presentation. Then when he came down, I tried to take a picture with him. Then after taking the picture, he asked me, "So what's the time? When is the show gonna be?" Then I didn't hear it the first time, but when he said it again, then that's the time that I realized, oh, it's Sir Lex of the 500 First Legion. So I was so starstruck. It was Darth Vader in full suit. I
Mm.
don't know if he has the lightsaber, but he's such a cool guy. I met him like almost a decade ago when he bought my copy of Soul Calibur 4, which he purposely bought took from my hands because it had the guest characters from Star Wars. So really cool guy. Hopefully I could bring him in the show in the other episodes if he's up to it. So please check out Cebu Star Wars show in Ayala Mall's E Block. Tomorrow the yesterday they did May the 4th. So tomorrow it's May 5. It's going to be Revenge of the 5th. So please do come and enjoy the presentation that they have in the show. And shout out also to his venture, the Outpost 1313. That's it.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you for that, Sir JDM. And shout out to the Star Wars Cebu community right there. How about Sir Joel? Where can they find you?
All right. You can catch me on twitch.tv under Banyang Native or on kick.com under Banyang Native. Haven't had the chance to stream most recently, but when I do stream a mix of modern or retro games. Recently, I've been hitting Forza Horizon 3, going into 4 and 5 probably in the future. Current games also are Just Cause 4. I'm going to be doing a run of NES games using 3D Sen, which is an engine that renders old NES games in 3D. It's very interesting to watch. And yeah, this is just a tiny sliver of the video games that keep that keep us entertained in terms of Star Wars. We haven't even touched on the DOS games like X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Jedi Outcast, the modern games like Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Squadrons, the latest Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga is completely amazing. It doesn't just have gestures now. The Lego characters don't just gesture to each other anymore. It has full voice acting, and it encompasses all 9 movies, the three originals, 3 semi good ones, and 3 heretical sequels. So it's just, you'll be finding me streaming everywhere, taking care of ROI, Retromancy Official Incorporated. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to everybody checking out the games that we talked about here. Back to you, Joe.
All right. Thank you for that, Sir Joel. And how about Sir Viraj? Where can they find you?
You can find me in hell. That's
What?
Island hell.
Playing non-inverted flight controls? What?
This is ridiculous, man. This is just, I need to get over this ridiculous retardation I heard in this chat right now. Anyway, so yes, you can find me on YouTube. I'm part of the crew, the Sega Mega Masters crew. So if you search that on YouTube, you can find me. I'm in the Sega Genesis group on Facebook, so you'll find me there as well. I have a Twitter account now, at Bygone Games UK. I buy and sell retro video games, and I'm starting to ship internationally now. So those of you who are into Nintendo handheld software, that's what I try to specialize in. So yeah, you can look me up and then have a look there. And yeah, obviously you'll find me with these fine gentlemen in this group and lady. And I'm always on this. Well, I'm almost always on the podcast talking about sort of stuff. So I look forward to seeing you all next podcast. And thank you for joining us and me. Back to you.
All right. For that, Sir Viraj. And on my side, thanks to this episode, Sir Dan and Sir Viraj has nothing but contempt for me.
Nothing. I love you. Really.
because of my opinions about KOTOR
I have
and
a lot of love
inverted
for
flight
you.
controls.
This thing I disagree with you on. I think you're very wrong. you've definitely screwed the pooch on this one. But other than that,
Oh, there you go.
screwed the pooch. By saying
So,
that.
shameless plugs. Okay. So, still, our back to the culture. Our retro video gaming market. It's a mini event hosted by ROI, of Retromancy. Back to the culture. Still, though, so we just had our first day, Saturday, earlier today at the Collective Base Promenade Mall, basement 2 of Green Hills. Tomorrow will be our second day, Sunday. So that's May 4, May 5th. So tomorrow is May 5th on a Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. So just check it out. To all of you video game enthusiasts and collectors out there, maybe you might surprise yourself. Maybe you might surprise yourself on what you will find there, from Atari games all the way to the PS3, PS4, PS5, Xbox games, Sega games, Nintendo games, all of those sorts. Games, cartridges, CDs, consoles, and handhelds. Just go to the Back to the Culture mini event hosted by ROI. And of course, our affiliates, Timeless Gamer Show is powered by Streamyard. Start your own online live streams, webinars, podcasts, online classes, and virtual presentations using a 14-day free trial by using the link right there on the chat. All thanks to Streamyard. And of course, enjoy the history of your favorite video game franchises in colored pages and anecdotes by getting your own publications from BitMap Books by using our link right there in the chat. They got compendiums for the NES, collection of SNES games, Sega Mega Drive games, Master System games, Game Boy games. There are also some genre-specific games. Genre-specific books like JRPGs, The King of Fighters, Metal Slugs, SNK, and a lot more. Just go to the link right there on the chat of Bitmap Books. And yeah, that's the show, guys. And thank you all so much for joining us on this Star Wars episode. And on behalf of our co-panels who can't be right now, Sir Dan and Sir Ray. Oh, many thanks to Sir Ray for doing our thumbnails for our thumbnails, of course. And Sir Dan, hopefully we can get back to the show. And yep, and thank you all so much. Hey, Sir Neil, Sir Ray Q, Baron and Royka, of course, our regulars right there, Sir Jomar, who's supposed to be here, but I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but hopefully soon. And we'll be back hopefully by next week. We're still deciding on the topic whether we should
Do the invert controls.
inverted controls. Maybe. You know what? Sure. Let's do that.
Well, we could
Games with inverted control.
We could do a topic on just video game controllers. I don't think I've been covered video game controllers. in various consoles
That's
and
true.
That'll be
Oh, you know what? Maybe I should get a custom controller that makes go up and up, up goes down, and down goes up. All right.
Maybe just rewire that puny brain of yours. Maybe that's
Might be cheaper.
yeah.
Might more doable. All right. So that's the show, guys. Thank you all so much. See you again next time.
All right.
And I forgot our games in our bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain. Hey,
Timeless. All right.
May the fourth
See
be with
guys
you.
next time. Enjoy the weekend. Bye.
More.
May the fourth be with you.
More.